Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Roll call, please.
Mayor Brinkman.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Stallman.
Here.
Councilmember Beckman.
Here.
Councilmember Cernanik.
Present.
Councilmember Cole.
Here.
Councilmember Taylor.
Present.
Councilmember Valdez.
Present.
Okay, will you please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the published agenda, we've got a couple changes on that. First thing is there is no exec session. That was a typo from an exec session that happened a number of months ago. So there's no exec and no annexation issues. And then we want to add to general business our Charter Review Committee appointments. So we will do that under general business. And under citizen appearances, we do have a scheduled public presentation from Margie Munoz, who is the director of the Board of Directors of the Humane Society of South Platte Valley. So any other changes to the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we will make those changes. And I believe that the agenda that's in the back, the handout, is corrected. Okay, so we'll go to minutes from the study session of July 9th, 2013. Any changes?
I've given the clerk.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. And those are approved with the submitted changes from Councilmember Cole. And then the the City Council meeting from July 16th. Any edits?
Given corrections there too.
Okay. Bruce?
I had one. Wendy, on line 287, it's a nit, but the satellite was MAVEN. There's an N on the end of it. Maven on line 287. I forgot
Okay.
I didn't have time to send you I should have
That's
sent you
okay.
the
Okay. Anybody else? I have Wendy on line 308 on, I believe it's page 9. The wording distance of notification requirements is not correct. If you would mind, go back and take a look at that and reword it to the wording that was up for the charter amendment. Yes, ma'am. Thanks. Okay, so with those minutes then are approved. Okay, so we have no guest citizens, but we do have a scheduled public presentation for Margie Munoz. Margie, you want to come on down?
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Brinkman, for having me today, and the rest of the City Council also. Pam Camilio is joining me, and we are part of the committee for the Best of the West Pet Fest, which is an event that is part of Westwood Welcome Week now, and we're really excited to join those festivities at Aspen Grove with the presentation of the Best of the West Pet Fest, benefiting the Humane Society of the South Platte Valley. So I'm going to turn it over to Pam really quickly, and she's going to go over some of the fun things that we've lined up for this program. That includes City Council from Littleton.
Thank you. Several of the things that we're going to have that afternoon from 12 to 4 is live music. We have a live country western duo, show bulls, a Longhorn, Texas show bull, and people love to either get on them, get their picture taken, or just see them. They're as big as a car. They're amazing. Clydesdale wagon rides, kids pony rides. We have a petting zoo, a dunk tank, which we are still looking for a few people to get on that dunk tank up there. So I'm just going to throw that out, and if anybody would like to do that, John Brackney, we would love to have you. Is that a yes? Do I? Okay. And Michael Penny.
He's not here.
Michael's going to do it. We have a bounce house for kids, balloons, face painters, jugglers, chuck wagon lunch, which is really going to be a lot of fun, and we've gotten a lot of help from some of the tenants at Aspen Grove who are going to contribute food and everything. The pet parade, if you bring your pet, because it is the Best of the West Pet Fest, at 12:30, or is it 1 o'clock? 1:30. We're going to have a walk all the way around Aspen Grove, and they get a little bandana for their pet to take on the walk, so it's going to be fun. Radio Disney is going to be there with their Dog with a Blog show, and it's a lot of fun for kids. A Western pet costume contest, so if people come with their little pets dressed up as cowboys or cowgirls, we're going to give them a prize too. Nature educators, raptors, an adoption corral, and that's a big feature. We've got our Champ Honda adoption vehicle there with a lot of pets that afternoon to adopt, so we hope we'll do some good business that afternoon. And we want to thank you for all your support. Thank you.
And I just want to add that it's Sunday, August 18th, from noon to 4 at Aspen Grove, pretty much right in the center of the shopping center. We have a lovely green field next to the Alamo Drafthouse Cinema, and that will be part of it, and going towards the buildings with the retailers. So we're really excited about that, and we want to thank Littleton for being a sponsor of the event, and we especially want to thank City Council and Debbie for agreeing to be the sponsor of the pet parade and costume contest, and some of you members will be judging the contest and providing a grand prize to the winner. So we're really excited to have your involvement, and thank you so much. And we just want to encourage all the residents of Littleton to come on out, have some fun with us, and bring your children and pets, and have a great time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, this is the time for unscheduled public appearances. This is an opportunity for any citizen to express their opinion or ask questions regarding city services, council policies, or other matters of community concern that are not part of the scheduled agenda. And generally, an immediate response should not be expected. Typically, issues are referred to the city staff for follow-up, for information or research, and then reported back to the council and the individual that initiated the comment or inquiry. It is a 4-minute time allotment, and we'll hold tight to that because we have a very full agenda and we've got a late start. If you are interested, please raise your hand. You'll need to give us your name and address when you come down. Larry?
Madam Mayor, members of City Council, my name is Larry Borger. I live at 6188 South Alati Court in the city, have for 52 years. I'm here to talk briefly about Kettering Lake. You have a lot of things on your agenda, and I won't want to go through all that, except to say I think the city is getting a bad rap about this, and I'd like to see if we could get something going. Even in your latest issue of the Littleton Report, you point out that South Suburban manages Kettering Lake and is exploring other alternatives for water sources, although it's doubtful there will be a viable solution. The clear implication is that the lake is going dry, there's nothing to be done, and there's nothing the city can do about it. And both those things are not true. There is something that can be done, and the city is in fact working on it. And I would like the community at large to know that there are things being done. The first, it's in two parts. The first is a long-range solution for keeping water in Kettering Lake, and that involves drilling a well and converting the irrigation system in Kettering Park, Gallup Park, the Littleton Museum, and the Littleton Library into a non-potable system, in other words, well water. You can pump well water for the price of electricity, which is a whole lot cheaper than what South Suburban has been paying to irrigate those areas. They pay $58,000 a year today to do that. The concept is to drill a well, put the water into Kettering Lake, pump out of Kettering Lake into this irrigation system, and have the water saving for the irrigation, but it would also mean putting water in Kettering Lake. that recognizes the fact that Kettering was originally built as an irrigation lake. It's at the end of a long irrigation ditch, and if that ditch doesn't run, it dries up. So here's a way to keep water in the lake during those times. That's a long-range solution. An engineering study is being called for now. I think the city ought to blow its whistle and say, hey, we're doing a long-range study. And Charlie Boston can go into detail with you about that. But the other thing is the near-term question. It might take 6 months to a year to do all the engineering studies, come up with how you're going to pay for it, drill the well, and actually begin putting water in Kettering Lake. In the meantime, the lake is continuing to dry up. Now, your water attorneys talked to you about this on the 9th of July in a study session, but I think glossed over the mechanics of how that might work. They touched on the fact that the city had a contract with the city of Englewood dated 1992 by which Englewood agreed to provide water out of McClellan Reservoir to the city of Littleton. I've got copies of the actual agreement I'd like to pass out.
Could you just hand them to the clerk and she'll get them to us? Thank you.
There are 7 copies there. It's a short agreement. You don't have to be a water attorney to read it. It's pretty self-explanatory. What it talks about is some of that water being used to augment evaporation from Cooley Lake on the South Platte River. That came 4 years later, and it wasn't necessary to use all 35 acre-feet for it, which means there's a net of about 16 acre-feet of water a year due to the city. The second document is that augmentation plan dated 1996. The bottom line, there's water in McClellan Reservoir that the city of Littleton owns, has the right to. You have a lake at the other end of the Highline Canal going dry. It's a matter of pumping water out of McClellan Reservoir, putting it into the Highline Canal, running it downstream to the head gate for the ditch at Kettering Lake, which is at Broadway and Cayley, and from there by gravity to the lake. I understand there's to be a study session to talk about all this on the 27th of August. And I appreciate the fact that there are studies that need to be done, particularly as relates to the well. I'm suggesting the questions that relate to taking water from McClellan that you own, putting it in the Highline and running it to Kettering can be resolved in a matter of several days, literally. And I would like to encourage you to put that on the August 13 study session agenda.
Thank you, Larry.
I'd be glad to answer questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Thanks, Larry.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to come down? Frank?
Good evening, City Council. Frank Atwood. I'd like to discuss 2 topics. One topic is approval voting. The second topic is National Night Out this evening. With regards to approval voting, I had a great meeting, and thank you, Wendy, for meeting with the Election Commission and letting approval voting be discussed. And issues still to be resolved are citizen education on approval voting and also Secretary of State guidance. Both of those I'm hoping will be resolved with a Representative Jonathan Singer's House bill that's being prepared and will be submitted in the legislature this January. So I'm very happy with approval voting making progress. The second issue is with regards to National Night Out. I believe each city council member got a list of where National Night Out locations might be, but I'm surprised that the announced city council candidates who are not incumbents did not receive an announcement and list of National Night Outs, and I hope in the future, in subsequent years, candidates will, both incumbents and non-incumbents will be treated the same. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank.
Did I give you a street address? I know what yours is. Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Anyone else? Carol?
Hi, I'm Carol Bresack, and I live in the 4th District. We also had a national night out. We had Gene Inley, and it was just a really, very pleasant evening to be sitting around a big patio and enjoying food and talking to a Littleton police about what goes on in our neighborhood and in the city. So we appreciate the funding for it. We know that it hasn't always been there. We hope it gets funded again. The other item I'd like to address tonight is to let the council know that we turned our petitions in this afternoon. There were 5 of us that spearheaded 2 petitions, one that would limit the reason why council goes behind closed doors for meetings, and the other one to take the state law on rezoning of matters that have been denied by our planning board or that a certain amount of citizens protest or oppose the rezoning. We want to take the language from that law and put it in our charter, as you well know. But I would like to recognize a few people tonight. This was a major effort by several Littleton citizens. Betty Harris, and we have several of them in the audience tonight, and I would like for Betty to go ahead and raise her hand or stand up. She might be too tired to stand up. I know I'm too tired. Frank Atwood and Mary Bradford and Jose Trujillo and myself sponsored the 2 petitions. We had several people that circulated the petitions in the community, and if you're here, would you please raise your hand? Norm Brown, Jack Randall, Natalia Sequira, Lou Sullivan, Val Watson, Paul Bingham, Marty Bolt, Marty Bresack, Nancy Barger, Eric Jones, Mary Weiss, Lee Burkett, Elwood Johnson, Jose Trujillo, Al Clariou, Rosalie Summers, Charlene and Mike Williams, Lori Rudder, Pam Chadbourne, Susan Bergsteiner, Susan Price, David Schwann, Dave Mitchell, Gary Jones, Sheila Donaldson, Barbara Rice, Teresa Tucker, Doug Clark, Bob McGee, Anna Harvey, and Eddie Seo. I just wanted you to know that it was not just a handful of people. It was a group of citizens that worked very hard. We feel like we've brought something important to you. And I know that there's a matter on the agenda in a week or 2 where you're going to where you're going to be discussing issues that will be placed on the ballot that will try to counter what the citizens have done. And I would ask you to let the citizens be represented rather than to resent the work that we've done. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Betty?
I'm Betty Harris. I live at 6281 South Cedar Street. Good evening, Council. We did have fun at our party. Commercial property generates more revenue for the city than does residential property. When you convert the land uses on a property through rezoning from commercial uses to residential uses, you decrease the amount of future and current revenue the city will realize from that property. This is a fact which is recognized by developers, by the council, and by the city staff. You had an item on your consent agenda less than a month ago to modify a declaration of covenant for Alta Aspen Grove, which was designed to compensate the city for the loss of revenue when it rezoned Alta Aspen Grove from commercial to residential. Quoting from your council communication, July the 2nd, 2003, for item 7A. Quote, the staff involved with the development of Alta Aspen Grove in 2007 indicate the intent of the RETA was to ensure the city received compensation to offset the expected revenue loss in the allowed change in zoning that permitted the project to be built. RETA, as you know, stands for Real Estate Transfer Assessment, which was a fee assessed to the property by the developer, Quadrant Properties, and paid into a city fund to compensate the city for the increased cost of services and loss of revenue which resulted from the rezone. Littleton, as you know, is landlocked. It has a very finite amount of commercial property. Each commercial property that you rezone into residential property results in an increase in costs and a decrease in revenue. It bothers me that you would even consider rezoning any commercial property because of the decrease in future revenues for the city, since you approved the economic development plan, which calls for increased taxes on the citizens of Littleton because of lack of revenue. I urge you to turn down any rezone from commercial to residential. Do the intelligent thing. Do the thing that is in the best interest of the city financially. Why should we have to pay increased taxes because developers want to make more profit on their property?
Thank you, Betty. Pam?
I'm going to ask for the projector to be turned on. My name is Pam Chadbourne. I live at 5402 South Nevada Street in District 1. And I'm going to talk about the council and staff's burden of proof regarding retail to residential rezoning. Betty and I didn't coordinate at all. And she said it much more succinctly than I am. Rezoning has impacts. We're already zoned. There is an intended balance among the land uses and intensities in the current zoning. There's a rationale and intention in that, and I'm going to ask you if you can focus the slides. It prevents incompatible land uses. It prevents conflicts between differing uses and densities. It provides for diversity of housing for all income levels. It should assure local employment opportunities and small business opportunities persist. Current zoning is a promise, if not a contract, between the city and the current property owners and users. The comprehensive plan should document the impact of current zoning through the decades. Rezoning has an impact on time, short, medium, and long term. Space, the immediate space, the neighborhood, the travel corridor, the commercial area, the entire city and region-wide. It impacts the budget, income versus expenses, as Betty pointed out, and the quality of life. In recent rezoning considerations, the city presentations and decisions have been short-term, site-specific, and applicant-focused. This ignores the city's obligation to define the long-term impact on the city. And this harms the city, its people, its visitors, its stakeholders, and all of our futures. Neither the planning board, the city council, nor the public have been presented with independent city impact assessments in any of these four listed recent rezoning considerations. The city must provide an independent impact assessment of rezonings. It must be presented to you, also to us, the public, so that we have the same information, and that will help drive agreement or consensus. I'm not saying all of us are going to agree all the time, but it will help heal the divisions that we've experienced up to now. I'm going to tell you, it is impossible to achieve an excellent future city without these impact assessments. It is very likely instead that an average, mediocre, and struggling city will be produced without impact assessments. So the city has to supply these, and first I put future development opportunities. If you put a whole bunch of residences at a major intersection or a good intersection, how does it displace future opportunities for people who want to develop up and down that corridor for either retail or residential? In none of these considerations have you presented anything that tells us that. And what about housing, police, fire, schools, infrastructure, traffic, parks, open space, retail, office, employment, and the city budget and our schedule? So how about an is and would be impact for these items in 1, 10, and 25 years, presented to us as a result of the rezonings? I've got an example, and the point of it is that much of this should already exist. We've got an economic development department, and we pay them. They should have at hand a housing market assessment and projection in the Denver metro area. We should have infrastructure assessments. We should have a budget projection. We should have traffic and transit projections.
You need to wrap it up.
Okay. And we should have parking impacts.
Okay, Pam, thank you.
Well, so I'll just state, the council needs to ask for these assessments from the city before you vote, much less approve any future rezoning applications.
Thank you.
So is that a PowerPoint presentation? Can you send it to the city clerk and she could send it to us so we see the whole thing? Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one, we will move to our consent agenda. Consent agenda are items that can be adopted by a simple motion. All the ordinance must be read by a title prior to the vote, and any consent agenda item can be removed by a council member. Item number 6A is the Arapahoe County Community Development Block Grant Program, and the question here is, should the city continue the CDBG program resulting in $150,000 allocation for North Neighborhood Sidewalks and Integrated Healthcare Initiative? Item 6B is a resolution approving the funding for the Lee Gulch Overlook site improvements. The city has been approved for a $125,000 grant by the Arapahoe County Open Space to fund the design and the construction. And the city proposes to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with Arapahoe County Open Space in order to receive these funds. Furthermore, staff is also proposing to have the South Suburban Parks District manage and maintain the project. The estimated project completion is 2014. Item 6C is a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement for funding of the Murray Nature Discovery Area. And this is similar to the prior. City has been approved for a $250,000 grant by Arapahoe County Open Space to fund the design, construction of the site improvements. And 6D is a motion to set the date of September 3rd, 2013 for consideration of amended and restated consolidated service plan for Littleton Village Metropolitan District. This, and I'll read the background on this because this is really something that is going to come back to council. We essentially this evening are just setting a date. Pursuant to City Code Section 811-2, following the filing of a service plan with the community development, the City Council must set a date for formal consideration of the filed service plan. The Littleton Village Metropolitan District, which was approved by the city in 2006, has submitted an amended and restated consolidated service plan, the restated service plan for approval by council. The restated service plan will provide for 2 additional districts to serve the Littleton Village project. And the purpose of this action is to set the date at which the council will consider approval of this plan. The date agreed to by staff and the district is September 3rd, 2013. And a full analysis of this restated plan will be provided to council at the September 3rd meeting. This agenda item, again, is just purely administrative, and the only purpose at this point is just to set the date in accordance with city code. So, can I have a motion?
Madam Chairman, I move that we approve consent agenda items 6A, 6B, 6D, and 6C.
In that order.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Ready to vote?
vote is 7 in favor, the motion carries.
Okay. Okay, item 7A is the second and final reading on the Littleton Village PD Plan, Major Amendment Number 1, and rezoning of 7400 South Broadway. And I need to read that. This is an ordinance of the City of Littleton, Colorado, approving the rezone of a portion of property known as Littleton Village at 7400 South Broadway from PDR to PDC and amending the planned development plan. And this is a public hearing. We'll first hear from staff and then the applicant, and then we'll open a public hearing. So, Glenn, you want to get us started?
Mayor and Council, I have the exhibits for the project and the public hearing roster.
Thanks.
For some reason, my first slide isn't coming up, but what that shows you is the 77-acre Littleton Village property. You know it affectionately, I'm sure, as the Marathon property. It's on the east side of Broadway Road, just north of Mineral, and we're really dealing with approximately the east half of that planned development. So this is what was approved back in March of 2006 by the City Council. Again, it's 77 acres. It's two different planned developments. The west half is a planned development commercial, which allowed retail and mixed-use residential. And then the east half included about 44 acres of purely residential. So how the uses basically broke out in the planned development today is there is a total of 250,000 square feet of retail uses, 412 residential uses on that west half. It's also known as Tract 1. And then the residential portion is on the remaining for a total of for 488 units. Again, the total build out of the project allows up to 250,000 square feet and 900 dwelling units, and that is not changing. So that is the ultimate development of the site. That is not changing with this project. We're moving land uses around and egads. So I missed nope. Oh, there it is. The first page came back. Sorry, Mayor. It was a really great presentation, but I'll wing it. Okay. Tell you most of the changes. So, back in 2006, the staff presented how the case did not totally meet the comprehensive plan, but there were changed conditions. And as I'm sure you're aware, this was a research site for Marathon Oil. At the time, and this dates back to the 50s and 60s, this portion of Littleton was really seen as an industrial area. But then Highland Ranch happened, the Littleton Adventist Hospital happened, and the area changed into industrial uses that supported the hospital and also residential and commercial uses. So there was kind of a big shift in the land uses on Broadway Road, and these uses were ultimately supported by the subsequent comprehensive plan for the area and the South Broadway Corridor Plan. Also, at the same time, the staff and the council found that it met the criteria for a planned development. And those are a number of criteria, and again, we find them in this case too, that there's creative, that the PD allows creative and effective use of the land, that there's innovation in the provision of residential land uses, that it meets the contemporary needs of the community today, that there's a process of how you go through and approve a plan development and ultimately develop the land, and there's adequate utilities, and it's consistent with the comp plan. Again, we find those cases today, even though this isn't a new zoning, we're just changing an existing plan development, we feel we still meet those criteria. The original plan, and I would certainly show it to you if I have it, if I had it here, but the biggest difference is the access to the Main Street portion of the project. Came off of Fremont Street. It came up a diagonal. The developer was really trying to take advantage of the toe of the slope on the property, so they wanted to move the Main Street up on top of the slope where the most views could be seen. This takes, the new plan takes a much different approach, and I think when we compare the original plan, and hopefully you have it in front of you, with the new plan, I think they're very similar. In the original plan, the major retail uses had a lot of frontage and a lot of visibility to Broadway Road, but really the Main Street was hidden behind. And I think when we compare it to the new plan, what we feel is a big difference and a big improvement is now that Main Street is central to the project and it's very visible to Broadway Road. The major retail uses are visible, and you have a great visibility corridor down the center of the project. Some of the biggest changes in moving this line around is it moves 7.7 acres from the residential portion into the commercial portion. That does a couple of things. It makes the density go up is because we're moving residential units into the west half. And then also, it also increases the open space because a good portion of the park and open space from the project moves into the PDC or the commercial portion. But really, the amount of open space stays consistent for the overall project.
Can we have a crunch time here? Yeah, we need a little crunch time here while we do things. All right.
Glenn, you said we got the original plan in the packet. You want to point out which page it's on?
With the first three. Was it today or 2 weeks ago?
Well, he said 2 weeks ago.
This is the original plan.
Yeah, it was the...
The big one?
This is the original plan. This is the amended plan we were talking about tonight.
The first one we got a couple weeks ago.
Cliff Architects was the original plan. Sim is the one that's active tonight.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's what I was looking for. Was the original. Okay. That's the.
Yeah.
Okay.
If we put the overhead on, we can at least see the new.
This is the new. This is the old one.
Glenn, turn it around, please. There you go. Thank you.
Here, I can show you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So on the top is the original plan and the portion of the site that we're dealing with. So as you can see, the Main Street is at a diagonal. And again, they wanted to stay on top of the slope, provide views from the Main Street into downtown Littleton and, of course, the mountains further west. And then you also had some larger box. I won't say big box because there is a size limitation. That does have your typical parking array in front of the site and is also visible from Broadway Road. And I think with the new plan, We still retain the Main Street, but it's very visible from Broadway Road. So it really acts, I think, as an attractant into the site. It's the main entrance into the retail portion of the site. So the red areas are the only retail uses and restaurant uses are allowed in parcels A and B. Then you transition into the yellow area, which allows kind of a larger format retail uses with residential above. So the yellow areas are more mixed use. And then you move into parcels F and J, and that is purely residential parcels. So you have a good land use transition, I think, between the retail to mixed use to residential and to lower density residential, which is the portion of the project that is not being affected. Some from an urban design standpoint, I think we're excited about the new plan because you have a more formal design aspect where the park is at the terminus of the Main Street. So you have an opportunity for activities within the park to bleed into the Main Street area and vice versa. Also, folks enjoying the park will also take advantage of that view corridor that's being maintained down Main Street, and that is a requirement that's still stays with the new plan. Is there are view corridors that are maintained in the project. The Main Street, or Second Avenue, I think it's called, in your development actually does not allow any development, so you do have a nice view framed. When you get to the open space on the north end, there's also a view corridor there. And then there's two view corridors that cut through the north half of the site and the south half of the site. And in those cases, building restrictions are held to 55 feet. One of the differences I think that staff and the applicant has put in place with the new plan is a cap on residential density. And even though the upper plan stated residential densities, there was transition allowed between the residential half, or the area to the right of the red line on your upper picture, into the commercial mixed use areas. And there wasn't a cap on what that density could be in that portion of the project. One thing we were able to do with the new plan is put caps in place on those parcels that are closest to the existing residential neighborhoods. And in this case, in the plan on the top, there was no cap in the total density allowed in Tract 1 or the area to the left of the red line. The new project has a cap of 250 units would be a maximum allowed in parcel F, and 150 units allowed in parcel J. Also in the existing plan, you had parcels J1 and J2, and those were the areas closest, those two residential parcels closest to the north boundary point, allowed some heights of 55 to 75 feet. The new plan actually caps the height in that area to 55 feet, and then the mixed-use area parcel F of the old plan allowed up to 100 feet. So you could transfer quite a bit of density, get up to 100 feet with the current plan on parcel F. And the new plan puts a cap on that of 75 feet and a total number of units, again, of 250 units. So from a staff standpoint, as far as protecting the existing neighborhoods, we do think that this plan perhaps checks more of those boxes. I know I have a nice, in fact, I can show it to you. I like this old school way of doing this. It's much better. Actually, Councilmember Beckman was concerned. You have a population that's coming here, and they're going to have to get to elementary school, and I believe it's Mark Hopkins Elementary School. There's some couple of ways that kids could actually walk. One would be probably not the preferable method, which would be out on a Broadway road over to Geddes Road, over to Pennsylvania, and then into school. Another way would be coming out of the south side of the site, heading east on Dry Creek Road and onto Washington, and now kids are more in a kind of a local street, lower speeds, lower traffic kind of area, a little bit safer area to walk. But I think the council member's concern was its current condition, which sidewalks start and stop, and it's really not a safe situation. The applicant will be rebuilding Broadway Road and Dry Creek Road. And if you could see on Broadway Road, on their portion they'll actually offset the sidewalk off the back of curb, so you'll get a tree lawn there, and then an 8-foot sidewalk on Broadway Road. And then the same thing will occur on Dry Creek. They will rebuild their half of the roadway, put in a new sidewalk, 5-foot sidewalk, and again set that off of the back of curb to allow a tree lawn there. So there will be pedestrian improvements put in place on both sides of the roadway. I know the applicant has had a couple of neighborhood meetings. They've heard concerns about this from the neighborhood, but also I think some of the folks from the north of the project would like to get to the retail on this side as well, and provide, if there was a better way to get a connection directly into the project, that would be great. But as you know, we have residences in the city of Centennial that back up to that site. So there may be an opportunity in the future, but at this point, those are really the most effective ways for pedestrian connection. So with that, I think I'll just wrap it up and say staff is recommending approval of the changes. We provided a proposed motion for you, and if you have any questions, Planning Board reviewed the project back on, I think it was July 23rd, and recommend approval by a unanimous vote of 7-0. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions for you.
Bruce.
Thank you, Glenn, for talking about the pedestrian issue, because I know over the years that was a very significant discussion. And my real concern is really safety for kids, because the type of residences that we're going to put in there and the people that we're going to attract, there's undoubtedly going to be kids that go to Mark Hopkins. So now's the time to make sure it's safe, not after some incident that says, why did we do that? So I don't think you have the best answer yet, but certainly it sounds like with what we have responsibility for, at least we're putting tractable sidewalks that kids can manage and a way for them to get to school. So I thank you for that, although I still think that the project could do better for the people that are going to be living there. But it went from the planning board to here with no conditions. There's no conditions attached. What you see is what we see is what the planning board saw.
What you see in your plan development, your 15-page, is what the project is, correct?
Just from a process point of view, and that's really all I'm sticking to here, is are we creating any kind of precedent by looking at one half of the project and not the other half? In other words, could the developer decide, this didn't go as well as we thought it would, so we're going to come back to the second half with a completely redesigned program, and project that will increase density and be a different type of project, et cetera, from what we've been led that it would be based on the 2008, I guess that's the right year, 2006 drawings, because we have a presumption that we're just working on the top of the body and the rest of it's going to stay the same. But is that a presumption that's not reasonable?
Well, they could certainly ask for major changes from what you're seeing tonight. And there's parameters of how much they can move around. And one of the things we did in this case is reduce those parameters. So if they do want to make major changes to the east half or west half, they're back in this process. So yes, they could request it, but not without a formal public hearing and going through this process again.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
Phil?
Glenn, can you talk about traffic impact and where that is? I know that they're moving some of the access, but what's going to happen on Broadway and Dry Creek, and how is that being addressed other than just the repaving part? And I do appreciate very much the pedestrian ways, because right now there's nothing there on particularly on that Dry Creek side. So.
Sure. They have done quite a detailed traffic analysis. I think one of the major changes or recommendations you see from that study would be dual left turns from southbound Broadway Road to eastbound Dry Creek. And then also I believe they're recommending that the same occur for southbound from Dry Creek onto Broadway Road, also have a double left lane. So they're trying to move the left turn movements quickly. They are adding not only the north half of Dry Creek Road, but they're adding a median that you can see in the lower left-hand corner of the project. They're adding a median to provide safe stacking and adequate stacking for those folks turning left. And also it will limit access in and out of this site. The site at, or I guess the east or north-south roadway that goes in front of the yellow mixed-use area is right in, right out at this point. There is an opportunity to increase and allow left turns, but they're going to have to look at some realignment. The roadway at Fremont, that's where the traffic signal is. That really becomes primarily a residential roadway. That's the roadway you would come in to access your home in the west, the east half of the project. So I think what this development does is kind of separate the commercial traffic from the residential traffic. But there's a number of improvements, perhaps Charlie would know a little bit more detail, that they're going to be required to deal with the traffic for this site.
Okay, and a specific question, because I'm glad you mentioned the median there on Dry Creek. Currently, someone can make a left-hand turn from the gas station that's on the southeast corner there, but it looks like the median is placed such that that left-hand turn from that gas station would no longer be permitted.
That's correct. It would make it safer. We'll put it that way, because that is kind of a dangerous situation as it sits today. So yes, out of that driveway, it would be right in, right out.
Yep. Bruce?
Glenn, on page 72 of the packet, item 7A that we got, there was, and I think you've alluded to the changes, and I'm going to ask the question, and then I'm going to sort of ask you to clarify, I guess, what the issue was and what the changes were, because in reading through it, there was a lot of content. I just want to make sure that there was clarity in terms of this particular issue. But page 72, it was a letter from the 10th of July, but then there were several of those. It was point number 8. It talks about density on parcels F and J not meeting the intent of the original plan, and it says staff feels that the proposed increase in the number of units on parcels F and J over the original approval, as well as the previous submittal of the application, changes the character of the original GPD by creating large standalone multifamily structures, so forth and so on. And then I think you just mentioned, and there was more discussion in here about capping some of these things and some limitations on height and so forth and so on. Can you just re-elaborate a little bit in terms of what the answer or the compromise to the staff concern on that point was based upon the map you've got there?
Sure. Yeah, and that was the concern, is the fact of keeping the old rules where you could transition, where you could move density into parcels F and J, and without any cap, right, it could certainly exceed what was originally approved. So the compromise was to put the cap on number of units and the cap on the height on those two parcels.
And that's where it went from the 100 to what, 75 or 55?
Right. 100 to 75, and then on the north it was 75 to 55, I believe.
Okay. And there isn't one in here, and maybe the applicant has it, but is there a topographical map, more or less 3D, that would sort of show the slope there's obviously on Broadway, it slopes down dramatically, 15, 20 feet till you get up to the top of the property as it exists today, and then it flattens out. And the question ends up being is for the folks, and I know this isn't part of the rezone, but there's implications. You talked about the view corridor down, I think it's 2nd Avenue, being preferable to what was proposed in the original, which I think appears to be a reasonable comment. But with the heights and the changes in the height, there was some comments in here from the staff that the height would still be fairly high on some of these frontal buildings, even given, I think, the topography of the land. And so my question is there any way to visualize what the folks further east are going to be able to see? Are they going to get any sort of a view corridor on those properties based on the commercial and then the 2-3 stories that would go in front of them to the west?
Yeah. Well, actually, you have a drainage plan in your exhibit, and if you wanted to trace all the contours, you could figure out the height. But no, I don't have a good picture to show you, and perhaps the applicant can. Now, one thing I will say is in the view corridors, they're actually restricting it more than the previous plan. I think the previous plan allowed buildings up to 60 feet within some of those corridors, and this limits it to 55 feet. And again, I think what's critical is that center 2nd Avenue, because that is kind of your main views of not only the retail, but the park and the mountains in the back is wide open, will stay wide open.
No, and I agree with that, but I guess my question at some level is we don't really have a great way to visualize if you've got a 55-foot building, but it's 10 feet or whatever below grade relative to the top of the property. It's even a better view corridor, and I just wondered if there was a way to actually see what that looked like as we're considering this. And if you don't, if they have it, great, and if you don't, that's okay too. I just was trying to see what that.
There is a way, but yeah, staff doesn't have that.
All right, and maybe they can talk about it or address the issue. The other, in the packet, starting on page 84 of the 7A, we got the laundry. There was a bunch of pictures of architectural designs because apparently the design guidelines haven't been settled. That was in the original packet as well, several, at least 2 weeks ago, July 16th.
Right.
Have you guys made any progress, or maybe said differently, based on the examples that are in there, which of those particular pictures do you, based on your communication with the applicant, think might be closest, a close approximation of some sort as to what we would be able to expect or would be able to visualize?
Right. Those are all the multifamily examples that they provided, color pictures.
Yeah, some of it might have been mixed use, but yeah, I think you're correct in general.
Right. We wanted to get a good idea and have the applicant provide a good idea to the planning board and council what these kind of densities could look like. So that's really what they're provided for. We haven't tied that to a design guideline to actually say this project has to meet the quality as designated with those examples. We really wanted to get an idea what 55 units per acre built out to the street potentially would look like. So that's why those examples were provided.
And to, I don't know, who, Councilmember Cernanek or Beckman, one of them mentioned the conditions, maybe it was Phil, so there's no staff condition on this with respect to design guidelines or architectural review. Is that a true statement?
To tie to those pictures? No, there is not.
Well, not necessarily those pictures, but just some sort of follow-on where staff has some ability to come in and say, okay, we like this, we don't like that.
Other than what's actually in that 15-page PD plan, and it talks about character of certain areas, that is the architectural design standards at this point. Now, one of the commitments is that they will develop more detailed design guidelines when we're actually in the development part of the process, but we don't have those at this point.
But is that something that's advisable as far as a condition on the rezone is concerned?
Well, typically what they do is staff will review those, approve those, and then that becomes an actual ties to the, like a covenant to the property. So when there's an architectural review committee, which is what they intended to do, they utilize that just like with our South Park development. They have an architectural board that uses very specific design guidelines where they review a project before it even comes to the city. And I think that's the same intent here.
Okay, so that, I assume that's then what they refer to as the conditions, covenants, and restrictions with respect to the Metro District?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, that's good for now. Thank you.
Jerry?
Back in 2006, when we were talking about the cleanup of the site, did we get verification that the site had been cleaned up by Marathon?
Yes, we do.
We do have that? Do we have letters that say that?
Is it in the, I can't hear you. I'll bring Janet up.
Thank you.
You have a letter from the state, and it's an original case file from 2006, because it was submitted in 2006.
Right. And then in there, I think it was the assistant city attorney back then had said something about there could be additional requirements by the city at the plat, during plat?
I don't, for more cleanup?
Perhaps.
I don't recall that.
I mean, that's
I'd
what
have
the
to-
attorney had said at that point.
Oh, I don't recall. I'd have to research that and
It's in the
check
minutes.
it out.
That's where I found that.
In the minutes from the
Right.
council meeting,
From the planning commission meeting.
planning commission meeting from
Right.
2006.
Yes. That's the one that I'd asked Glenn for, and he sent it out to everybody. So you didn't look at it yourself?
Well, when we do plating and they dedicate property, like for the streets and all, the city requires a environmental assessment anyway. So there could be an additional environmental assessment to review the property as it is now. I mean, the cleanup was, 6 years ago or 7 years ago.
The other part, thank you, Jan.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. So, Glenn, then on the path that the kids would take to go to the elementary school then, we talked about either they'd go to Broadway or say the long way around. Does the traffic engineer or anybody get involved with that as far as sidewalks and safety issues that are potential?
Typically they would, and they would look at pedestrian movements as well. But again, in this case, they looked at what our standards were for sidewalks on an arterial road, on a collector road, and they're basically meeting that standard.
And is there a school bus that picks up kids in that area?
Now, the applicant has, I think, been in discussions with LPS. I think their initial feeling is, with the population here, that there probably would be a bus route through the site and a pickup. But again, we don't know that today.
And then as far as, the rest of my questions I can wait for the applicant. Thank you.
Bill?
And Glenn, one of the things that you mentioned is that there's an increase in density. And I'm going to ask you to kind of explain that because at least as I'm understanding some of what's happening, it's taking some of what was residential in the eastern half and moving it to the western half and making it more of a mixed use. And it seems to be decreasing what I would consider to be residential density by moving it from essentially the back 40 to the front 35 in that. And so if you could you please kind of explain the words around that?
Sure. Yeah, and perhaps a better way of saying it's increasing because we're drawing the line in a different location. So we're straightening out the line, and what that does is it moves some of the residential from the original plan now into the commercial mixed-use area. So it looks like it's increasing, but overall, it's staying the same. But because that line is moving, there is more residential now in a larger commercial mixed-use area.
And
that helps.
The other part that you've commented on is that in the eastern half of the property, what was part of the 2006 version permitted a higher height line in that, but now there's a control and a reduction in that, so there actually is a improved or at least a gradation from the existing residential, it happens to be the Centennial residence, into towards the middle of the property, so they're not seeing as high of what could have been in their backyard, and that is a change. Though we haven't seen detail on the eastern half of the property, there are some constraints and height limits and gradation elements that improve some of what they might view from their backyards.
Right, but those restrictions are on what you're seeing here on the west half. Nothing is changing on the east half, other than some ability to just randomly move density around and increase heights. So you're right, we are putting some caps on how much F and J basically can increase in height and increase in density.
Jim?
Glenn, that paper in your hand, if you put that down there, that shows the dividing line between the east and west properties in the 2006 plan. That red line that's all jagged up and down. And so what this new plan is doing is making it a straight line, so therefore some of the density transfers has to occur because of that line being straightened out off of that very jagged line from 2006.
Much better said. Thank you.
Jerry?
Sort of following up to what Phil was talking about. So on track one, we're talking about increasing the units, dwelling units, to 600 from 412. And then when we get down to the mixed use, it's being reduced from the 412 to 372. Is that so? This is the math we're talking about? I mean, that's...
With the reconfigured line, basically what your plan development is proposing now is they could go up to 600 units in that, I believe, 43 acres. And then the other part of it is they could potentially have up to 400 units in the eastern half, but the cap would be 900 units. So you have a flexibility of 100 units, basically.
Thank you.
Council, any more questions? Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jim McGinn, and I'm with the Watt Companies, and I thank you for the opportunity to come before you and talk about the vision of our project. Today, we'll talk a little bit about our sponsor, Watt, the evolution of the project, our vision for the retail mixed-use portion of it, the multifamily overview, and of course, important areas, traffic, circulation, and drainage, which has some questions on them already. Before I go much further, I want to introduce the team that I'm a part of. We have Nicole Adment and Blair Daniels from Brownstein, Hyatt, Farber, and Schreck. They have helped us manage the whole process of this change in the amendment. Christopher Kenton from SEM, he is our architect. He was also on the South Glen project, was a project architect there, so he brings a lot of experience on this kind of a project. Charles Buck is the traffic engineer. Charles was on this project in 2006, is very experienced and knowledgeable of the traffic issues. Jamie Overgaard, civil engineer, the Lund Partnerships, really handled the drainage issue and some of the topography questions that you were asking. And Gardner Hammond, which is right here. Gardner's our local person, engineer by background,
has given us a lot of information on the cost and especially the infrastructure and the metropolitan districts. Another person that is my associate is Jen McElroy, who is the project manager. She's not here today, but she's pregnant, so we've cut her travel schedule down a little bit.
Mr. McGann, if you would move that microphone, you're getting a lot of feedback, or we are. Just move it away from you a little bit. You're too close to it.
Okay, fine. Is that better? Okay.
When you talk, we'll find out.
Say a couple P's. Let's see how it sounds.
I'm sorry? The other person in the audience is a gentleman by the name of Ted Cox. Ted is really responsible more for the eastern half that is not being considered tonight. He's a residential builder. Ted was with Watt for a number of years, president of the residential side. I worked with Ted. I've been with Watt for 26 years. And Ted moved his family out here to Colorado Springs, and we've done a number of projects with Ted. Just briefly, a little of the history. Watt and why it's important. Watt's a 60-year-old company. It was started by Ray Watt in 47, and he really built residential houses for returning veterans. Built over the last 60 years, 100,000 homes. He passed away a couple years ago. His son and his daughter are the lead members of the family that run the company, and the company is 100% family owned. Excuse me. The commercial mixed-use experience that we have, we've built, let's say, 10 million square feet of properties, and we own 6.5 million square feet now of commercial properties. Half of that is in the retail side. But the more important part of this is that we've built 6 master plan or mixed-use developments over the years, and we know the successes and what it takes to make something success, and we also have learned the hard way on some things that didn't work. And I can say that this project has all the elements of a very successful project, and I hope to show you the reason why. We've been in the Colorado area in the past. In the 80s, we had a Watt residential group here that had division. And then in the 90s, we had John Lang Homes, which was a division here that did building out in Stapleton and other areas. And then on the retail side, we bought several properties under the Central Watt joint venture, which turned into Brixmor, which owns a number of retail properties out here now. I think that the thing that attracts us to this project is that it is a project that is fully compatible with a product mix that you have. And when I say that, we often talk about vertical mixed use developments, but this is really a horizontal mixed use development. And each project and each product within those projects really complement the others and help to support the success of those products, so that we think overall this project will be something that the community and ourselves are very proud of. What it also allows us to do is to get back into the metropolitan Denver area and the Colorado area as the economy has started to come back. So we're very pleased with this opportunity. I'm going to turn it over to Nicole right now, who will take you through some of the specifics of the evolution.
Good evening, Council. I want to say first that while I'm disappointed that Jen McElroy could not be here tonight to give this portion of the presentation, I'm excited that I get to do it, because while I am counsel for Watt, I am also a resident in this area and moved here to this particular portion 12 years ago because I attend South Suburban Christian Church, right across the street from this site. So I've been watching it with great interest and am very excited to be a part of the project. So while I'm a lawyer, I have a special interest. So in 2006, there was an approved plan, and that plan had all the key components for a good mixed-use project. But when Watt, with its mixed-use experience, looks at it, they realized that they wanted to change the layout to make it a more viable project. Glenn kind of walked you through this. You can see here the plan and how the main street was more angled, didn't directly draw in from Broadway, and didn't provide the direct sight lines into the retail components. So they really were interested in changing the layout, but not the overall use. So we moved to a more traditional grid type approach, which made Main Street feed directly off of Broadway, and the parcels then give a more viable and dynamic project. We'll go into the exact details on how these lay out throughout the presentation. The key thing we want to focus on tonight, though, is the fact that this was consistent, and our changes are consistent with the approved plan. Because there aren't changes in the uses, there's no additional traffic impacts. We preserved the view corridors, and as I'll show you in a minute, we not only preserved the view corridors, we added an additional view corridor. There's no increase in the residential unit count. We were working diligently to listen to the comments that were made in 2006 by council, by surrounding neighborhoods, and we did not want to increase that residential unit count or the impact on the surrounding neighborhoods. There's no increase in commercial square footage either, or no increased ability to build a big box or any type of retail, which the council and the surrounding neighborhood had previously impressed upon the developer that they did not want to see in this area. There's the preservation of the walkable Main Street. We've heard that this is of particular interest to the city of Littleton, and we think it also makes for a very viable project to have that Main Street component that draws people into the larger retail. So that's been maintained and actually increased in visibility because of its direct access to Broadway. That's along with the preservation of the Village Plaza District, which now runs directly from Broadway all the way up to the park and makes it more usable by all of the surrounding neighborhoods and the internal residential. We kept the balance of mixed uses on the overall site so that there's still the balance of retail, general commercial, multifamily, and residential. We maintained the improvements to Broadway and Dry Creek so that both of those could be expanded, and there's easier access into the site while trying to reduce the impact on neighborhoods to the north and to the south. We preserve the northern boundary park that's 150 to 100 feet wide all along the northern boundary so that it lessens the impact on the Centennial neighbors to the north and provides some additional green space to the neighborhoods in the surrounding area. And we maintain the vision for Central Park. We also preserve the entry corner feature, which is down on the southwest corner of the site to provide a nice anchor for the site and deal with some drainage issues. And we maintained all previously proposed drainage patterns within the site. As I mentioned, we kept the 3 view corridors that were already in existence, and we created a 4th through the middle of the site. Because of the new reconfiguration of the Central Park, now it makes it more accessible for everyone to come in and really capture that view. This is truly the high point of the site on that park, so now anybody can come in and make use of that and actually look to the west and capture what is just amazing views. The previous site had the park a little more off-center, didn't have a view corridor off of it, and so while there were some view corridors, they weren't going to be as easily used by residents within the site and anyone who comes and accesses those. And to the question that was raised before, these, the neighbors to the east will be, again, looking over houses. Those are houses that are all going to be on track 2. So because of the topography, I'm not even sure that they would have views, even if there wasn't commercial within tract 1. But we've done our best to create some very usable view corridors for anyone who wants to come and access the site. In addition to maintaining, when we reconfigure the parcels, it allowed us to improve upon certain aspects of the plan. As mentioned by Glenn, we did reduce heights across tract 1. There was a possibility before of a couple of sites that would go up to 100 feet. We took those down in one case to 55 feet, in the other case to 75. We dropped a number of others down to 55 feet. We really did not need to maintain that flexibility as was in the 2006 plan, which would allow certain heights to go up to the 100 feet and movement. We wanted to really capture what we thought would be built there and give council and staff certainty as what we'll be proposing when we get into the more details of the plan. Additionally, we put the caps on the multifamily density as was requested by staff. We wanted to make everyone within staff, city council, and the surrounding neighborhoods comfortable with what would we be building. We feel that these numbers are very adequate within what our plans are, and so why not put the caps in there and make everybody understand what's coming down in the future. As mentioned before, we reconfigured Central Park to maximize the views and make it a more usable site. We've increased the walkability because of the way that Central Park is aligned. And when you look at the plan, how it ties into what will be more of sort of green belt boulevard parks along the east, so that it really does draw people to walk throughout the site and along the northern boundary park. The reconfiguration of the retail and mixed use creates a more viable village concept that, again, draws everybody up the main street and keeps that active center core as opposed to the diagonal before. We also reduced the impact of the neighbors to the north. As previously configured, there was 3 possible sites on the northern boundary that could be developed. We've taken that down to really 2, and we've taken it down to being more internally focused as to being directed outwards to the north. So that's really reduced that impact on the Centennial neighbors to the north. And we also consolidated access along Dry Creek Road. There used to be a number of access points by which people could enter and exit the site, but we've reduced that by request of the neighbors to the south so that they're less impacted as well. And I won't go into this because this is what Glenn walked through as the actual plan here. Just to walk you through quick the process that we've been through. We started last fall actually meeting with the planning staff and talking to them about what our visions were for the plan informally, and then we went through 2 formal pre-application meetings with the city of Littleton to talk to them about what our plans were, what they would suggest, and how we best make that work with the city's vision. We did 3 formal submittals with the city of Littleton with response and comments that you have in your packets. I believe that the reason that you don't see a lot of conditions, you don't see any conditions tonight, is that we worked diligently with staff to address all those comments before we got through this process. We felt that that was really important to get there. In addition, we did a significant amount of community outreach. This property is unique in that on 2 sides it is bounded by the city of Centennial. So they don't technically get notice of these meetings. They may not know about them, but we feel as good neighbors and that the fact that they are to the boundaries of our property, we wanted to include them in the conversation. So we did meetings with all of the neighborhood organizations, including the 4 civic associations that you can see up there. On June 11th and June 23rd, we hosted large community meetings at South Suburban Christian Church. We mailed notifications of those meetings to all neighbors within 500 feet of the property boundaries. So it was a very large mailing. How many? 300? 376? 376 mailings went on those. So those were very well attended, lots of questions. Additionally, Councilman Moon asked us to come in and speak to his council district meeting 2 weeks ago and answer a bunch of questions to his Centennial voters on this project. So we've wanted to keep an open dialogue throughout this process with the community. And now I'll turn it back to Jim so he can talk the details within the retail.
So the retail is the most exciting part of this project, I believe, but it's also the most challenging. We know retail is not a strong market today, but if you look down Broadway, you see a lot of spotty retail. And what we're trying to do is present a retail that is a plan that the products within that retail and within the site mutually support the success. And really the key has to be the Littleton Village. It's, as staff mentioned, we pulled the Main Street concept out front because that's where you've got the smallest retailers, the smallest square footage, and you've got the tenants that probably don't have the strongest balance sheets. So you've got to bring trips into the center to support not only the neighborhood community center, but really the Main Street. Why do you want to come in here, and what's going to keep you there to have a drink, to have a meal, or to hang around and just enjoy Main Street? Well, first of all, we took where you see the traffic drawn in from Broadway. That's the main entrance. We're going to have pads out in front, and pads can do one of two things. They'll have restaurants that if you don't get people to come in and sit down, or if you don't have a reason for staying, people are just going to come in and just go to those pads and then leave the center. We want to hold them. So we've got to have a good set of tenants that are on those pads along Main Street. Banks, food. Those are the things that we want to try to attract. You come in the Main Street and you see the four buildings that really represent the Main Street, the little village concept. We will have tenants in there that are 1,200 square feet, 1,000 square feet, 1,500 square feet. There'll be the restaurants, there'll be the small boutiques, there'll be the reasons to come and sit and linger. If you go up what we call Main Street, it's technically called 2nd Street right now, to the yellow portion there, that if you look at the top of the page there, it says mixed use commercial format. It provides a grocery, soft goods, office, and medical uses. If you look at the north, and that's along Fremont, you would like to have a grocery or something that brings people down Fremont as they go back to the multifamily, or they just can easily get into that grocery store. That's what you'd like to have. I'm not giving names because I don't have anything right now. We're talking to some people, but that's what we'd like to see up there. Down on Dry Creek, you'd like to have a soft good user. And then in between, you'd like to have what we call the junior anchors. The supermarket, I think, would be in the 50,000 square foot range, mid-40s to maybe mid-50s. The soft goods down on Dry Creek, if you could get somebody in the, the 40, 50,000 range, you'd be happy. And then in between, you're going to have smaller anchors, 12,000 square feet, 25,000 square feet. And as you approach 2nd Street, along that north-south street, you're going to try to get the mixed use where you actually can get residential over small service type retail. Maybe it's medical use, maybe it's pick up dry cleaners, or maybe it's a dental office. And that's what you'd like to populate so that there's a reason to walk from the Main Street down towards the park and through the whole project. And that's what we are trying to capture with this project. And I think that we can do it because I think there's three things that are working for us. One, there's tremendous traffic along Broadway. In the community meetings we had, many people say there's too much, but you can pull off Broadway. You can pull off the community itself. If you make this a point of gathering, you can have the surrounding community. That's why it's a great infill project. And then you're going to have anywhere from 600-700 units in the rest of the residential, whether it's multifamily or for sale housing, that will support this project as well. So if you pull out that together, this will be a successful retail project, and that's what we're aiming at. Someone said, what's it going to look like? Well, I'll tell you what I'd like to have it look like is something like this, because there's, one, you've got to have the parking out in front that make it easy for people coming up 2nd Street to pull in and run into that small store. They're not going to be there for long. If they are, they can do parking on the A and B that we pointed out behind these stores. You've got to make it pedestrian friendly. You've got to have the benches, the trees. Yes, it doesn't lend itself to 365 days a year, but there's a lot of times when people can really enjoy, like today, this Main Street concept. So that's what we are going to try to achieve. That's what the community wants, and that's what we think will be successful here. Don't look at the names. I'm not making any comments on names. These are people that are in centers that we have right now. But you look at when I talk about soft good users or grocery store users, I mean, this gives you an idea of the design, the facades that we think that will accompany this kind of product in that north-south corridor for the retail. So that's just a little overview of the retail side, and I'll turn it back to you.
And I'll breeze fairly quickly through the multifamily residential because I think Glenn hit on it pretty well in the changes that we made. As you can see here, and as Glenn expressed, that we did put a height reduction on J. As previously planned, a portion of J could have been built up to 100 feet, and density could have all been transferred onto that to allow for a tower. And same with F. It previously had a height of 100 feet and could have allowed for a significant amount of density to go onto that. We've limited J now to 55 and 150 units. Parcel F is now limited to 75 and 250 units. But just as importantly, as you can see from the design here, we've tried to move it so that the multifamily impact is towards the interior of that product itself, so that the parking is inside, the amenities are within inside, so that really those impacts are not going to affect the neighbors to the north or to the south. And additionally, we've kept the mixed-use multifamily over the commercial on G and H, so that ultimately we could build units on top of that commercial use there, which is the desire of the city. These are just a few of examples of what that multifamily might look like that has the mixed-use component on the main floor and really sort of draws that amenity to the outside with the parks and the sidewalk and creates an overall neighborhood feel as opposed to just an amenity to be used by the residential itself. Within your packet, we gave you several examples of product type that was the various densities per acre. And we just wanted to show you here again how it really depends on the design as to the impact as opposed to the amount of density. As you can see, the 67 density units per acre here, in my opinion, looks less impactful than the 32 density units per acre. Again, it's about the height and the design. And I know the question was asked of Glenn about our design guidelines. It is a requirement that we have to submit and have design guidelines approved by the city staff before we can submit a site development plan for any portion of the site. So city staff will be involved in that. We are actively working on those right now, and we'll be creating design guidelines that make for a comprehensive product throughout the site and make a site work that captures what the city wants and what we want for an overall successful site. I know that bike and pedestrian access is very important to the city and to this council, and certainly when we were creating our plan, we considered the Littleton Bike and Pedestrian Master Plan to create our circulation. And this is from the city master plan and shows, as you can sort of see, it's just that bright red line in the middle there, that along our site, what was considered in the master plan was an expansion of the sidewalk along Broadway and a creation of a sidewalk along Dry Creek. And certainly that is what we have done here. You can see our site is the one that is edged in the pink, and then the purple inside is the additional access that we will provide within the site. We think that not only does this capture the city's master plan, but it enhances it, because a number of those within the site are not just regular sidewalks. They are these green belt sort of parkway, think 6th Avenue, 7th Avenue up in Denver, with the sidewalk meandering through it, both through the middle of the residential site and along that northern boundary. So it's not just a strict type of sidewalk. And then to the school point, I know it is a question, and certainly we're trying to consider it, although interestingly enough, only because my kids are part of Littleton Public School can I actually look at the map and see where bus stops are. You can't just look at it if you're not a parent, which is good and safe. But while there are bus stops in some surrounding neighborhoods, the site itself, if you go to the southernmost portion of the site, is 0.68 miles from Mark Hopkins. When you read the Littleton Public School guidelines, we do think that this would necessitate that Littleton provide a bus stop within the site. It is far enough away, and because of safety considerations, we think that once we start to build residential, there would certainly be a strong argument to approach Littleton Public Schools and put a bus stop within the site. And we're talking 900 units within one site, and we think that would be an easy conversation to have. Not easy to have until you actually have the residential there, but certainly something we're considering and want to work into our circulation system. I kept that simple, and the last thing that we're going to talk about for you is the traffic summary. So, Charles.
Good evening. I'm Charles Buck, traffic engineer with Felsberg, Holt, and Olivig. Our offices are at 6300 South Syracuse Way. That's in Centennial. As has been pretty well stressed, land use of Littleton Village isn't changing. Therefore, the traffic impacts overall remain the same. I'd like to just give you a sort of an overview of the improvements that are a part of this project. Starting up at Broadway and Fremont, the full movement signalized access to the site from Broadway. We're widening Broadway to allow for dual left turn lanes southbound into the site, as well as a right turn lane northbound into the site. And there will be raised medians built in the center of Broadway. Moving south along Broadway, there's the Main Street / 2nd Street. That is a right turn only access. Right in, right out, left turns are prohibited. Those movements will be, those left turns will be restricted by a raised center median in Broadway. That right turn only access will also have a new right turn lane going northbound along Broadway. Down at the existing signalized intersection on Broadway and Dry Creek Road, the improvements that are proposed include dual left turn lanes southbound, dual left turn lanes westbound, and dual left turn lanes northbound. Then moving west along Dry Creek Road, there will be a raised center median to restrict turning movements to right turns only at the first site access, which is at approximately the Sherman Street alignment. That will be a right turn only. The next access is Grant, approximately. That will be for service vehicles only. We'll see very little traffic. There will be a full movement intersection at Logan, and there is the potential for that intersection to be signalized at some point in the future. And that would be a part of this project as well. The last access on Dry Creek Road is Pearl, and Pearl will be right turn only. Improvements along Dry Creek Road include adding the second westbound through lane and that raised center median that you see on the plan between of Sherman and Broadway. Another improvement that was touched briefly upon was the consolidation of access along Dry Creek Road. There used to be, I believe, 6 accesses proposed. That's now 5. But one of those 5 accesses is that service vehicle only access, and so it's pretty minimal activity there. Helps with vehicular conflicts along Dry Creek Road. That's basically it for traffic improvements, and I'll turn it back to the team. Thank you.
Thank you.
That kind of concludes our kind of formal presentation. I'd just like to say in closing that we would like the opportunity to develop this project. We think we've listened to the community. We know what is important to the community. And I think you can see that we have gotten a very experienced team, a local team here that can help us execute on this. So I ask for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any questions of the applicant?
Lots of questions. We've been an hour after.
We can ask the applicant questions now.
Find out what my notes are here. So I have a question on the building height then. So across the whole site itself, the highest building from the ground level will be 55 feet?
No, the highest could be 75, which is on parcel F.
And what was 55 feet that I think Glenn was?
J is 55.
J is 55, okay. Then 75 is on
F, which previously could be 100 feet.
So on the total number of units, our total number of units will be 900? Or?
We would anticipate I mean, we can't promise that it would be 900, but the total cap would be 900, correct?
I know that's the cap, but how many units are you proposing?
I think, what's the 872?
72, okay, good. And I'm trying to think, was that what the plan was last time, way back when, 2006?
Well, again, the cap was 900.
Right.
I don't think they had thought through it. I mean, that's us thinking through what those exact numbers could be. Their cap was 900 previously.
So then on the open space, open space will be increasing?
It is increasing slightly, not technically much, but because J previously was PDR and now it's PDC, we've increased that number that's required there to 25%.
And who's the landowner again, property owner?
Richardson is currently the landowner. Watt Investment has it under contract and will close within a
And
month.
we do have a letter of approval from the Richardsons then?
Yes.
Okay, do we have that somewhere available to us?
It was in our packet.
Is it in there?
It was in our packet.
Okay, cool. And then from Broadway, on the drawings I've seen, and I was checking out my stuff here, do you have a view somewhere where we can see it like from the sidewalk looking up the hill? What I'm trying to do is get an idea of what the hill itself will look like now. Now it's just, a hill with weeds and that kind of stuff. But is it going to be grass? Is it going to be parking?
Well, if you were looking from Main Street, which I'm assuming the middle of the site.
From the sidewalk off Broadway.
Oh, from the sidewalk off Broadway? I mean, it would depend on the point of Broadway which you're at. I mean, if you're right where you can turn in on Main Street, you would look straight up the street. It would be tree-lined into the park.
Okay. So if I'm down just a little bit north of the south corner.
Just a little north of the south corner, that's going to be, a major corner improvement that's got some drainage within it, a water feature, and a monument sign for the site. So you'd be looking up at that.
And then if I go to the north, then just a little south of the north, that's another access, is it?
If you go a little north, that's the Main Street access.
That is the Main Street?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then, what is, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, the pink is what?
The pink is retail.
It's retail, okay. And then where will deliveries the loading docks, whatever?
So deliveries to the Pink would be on the back sides of those buildings, so not on Main Street.
What is the backside on those pink?
What?
Kent with SCM Architects. The pink will all be 360-degree architecture buildings. Those are viewed, as Jim mentioned, small shop spaces, so they will be handled in a front-loaded manner. There is no true service area for those. Obviously, they'll have back doors based on size and code for exiting, but those pink buildings will be served through the front doors.
And then trash is located where?
Trash will be located out in the parking field in a trash enclosure.
So then on the yellow, how about there? Same question about
The
loading.
yellow has service courts because these are larger users, will handle larger trucks. So what you see in basically where the G and the H letters are located, those are the service courts, allowing for the trucks to go internal to the buildings, service the products and goods, and then leave out the north end of H and the south end of G, as Charles alluded to in the traffic plan.
And that's limited access?
That's the limited access off of East Dry Creek.
G alone. So, okay.
Yeah.
Then now on the south side, is the only residential or even commercial customers, where are they going to leave? Down way to the east, I see?
I'm sorry.
Exiting the property or entering the property will be way down to the
To get into
right.
F, yeah, is down further off of Logan.
And then as I get over to the second half, to the left half, where will commercial traffic be?
Commercial traffic's all going to occur within the first two access points.
Right off Broadway?
Off of East Dry Creek and then off of Broadway, yes.
Okay. And point to the access points, I'm sorry.
I don't really have a pointer.
Just the
In front.
Okay, where those trees are, okay.
So those three are the commercial access points, obviously. Once you come in this one, you can go the service access for these are there for G and there for H.
And then where's the Oak Brook entrance off of Mineral? Or Dry Creek, off of Dry Creek?
Oak Brook's the one. This is all Oak Brook. They have an entrance point here.
It's Logan. Right.
So with Logan, and is that an entry for the property as well, for you? Yes. Okay. Okay. One more, couple more maybe.
It's right there.
There's a well down in the lower right-hand, or yeah, the lower left-hand corner. What's going to happen to that existing well then?
The existing well?
The drawing has an existing well.
No, that's the monument. That's the water feature down there at the corner. So this will be where we'll have the project identification monument, water feature. Think some drainage. Denver Tech Center, think about their Tech Center monument that occurs there off of Bellevue and 25. Something in that realm that signifies the entry to the project.
The existing well right here?
Oh, existing well?
There is an existing well. It's likely to be abandoned, but it is down there.
Speak to it, not yet.
No, it's not utilized. It could be irrigation, but it's probably going to be abandoned.
Yeah, it's likely to be abandoned. It's not utilized this time.
Okay, cool. That's good. That's good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Bill?
you.
Not for you, Nicole. I think
Okay.
it might be for a civil engineer. As I recall, the plan is for sewer to move through two zones. If you could, please talk about the challenges of two zones and how that's going to be addressed in capacity so that we don't have constipation later.
Are we talking the sanitary sewer?
Yes.
Actually, the sanitary sewer, we've designed it to drain, everything drains to the north and then to the west. So the residential area as well as the commercial will drain basically to the north. We'll come down Fremont Drive, come down South Broadway, down to the north east corner of South Broadway and East Dry Creek. We'll pick up the sanitary sewer up there, and then it's going to be piped over about 800 feet
down East Dry Creek to, I have to look. There's an existing manhole at East Dry Creek Circle that we're going to tie into, that City of Littleton has done some improvements downstream for our for this community to be able to be picked up. And so everything is piped to one location.
So even though the original really talked about 2 zones, you're going to one.
We're going to one. The original one, you're correct. At one time we talked about taking a portion of the east part of the site and draining it to the northeast corner of the site. But now how we propose to grade out the site, everything can go to one location now.
Okay, so if someone lived west of Broadway on Fremont right now, you're not paralleling any of that drainage?
Not that I'm aware of.
Other questions? Bruce?
Hi, I'm not sure who to direct it to. I do want to talk a little bit more about the traffic plan, the streets and the intersection, et cetera. And this is kind of a general, very subjective comment, and I would like you to just comment on it. When this was done in 2006, the degree of traffic and use of that area was significant, but it is much more significant today. And what happens is a major east-west corridor becomes Dry Creek or Mineral up to Dry Creek or Arapahoe Road or County Line Road. And if one of them is blocked or there's construction going on, the other ones pick up the traffic. And it is considerably more, in my opinion, than it was in 2006. So for all those thousands and thousands of people that drive through Littleton and have an impression about how's Littleton doing and how is it treating me as a person driving through it, and maybe Littleton residents or maybe pass through, can you assure for me that we're putting down at that intersection on Broadway there with the medians and making decisions about right turn in and right turn out and those kinds of things, that we are at the standard, the gold standard for what that property and that area deserves, because that is a jewel and a gem in the Littleton area, and it needs to be constructed on the perimeters to a level that meets the highest possible expectations for somebody driving through. I think it'll set a standard for Littleton, and I'm asking how you've designed those roads if it's going to meet that high standard.
Well, that's a good question. The way we look at traffic operations and how people are being served is something called level of service. Level of service, it's A, B, C, D, E, and F, like a report card. A is the highest. You have very little delay, like 10 seconds of delay or less. B is pretty good. C is also pretty good. D is kind of the standard for urban or developed area peak hour traffic operations. If you can maintain level of service D, we would consider that acceptable operations. So when we looked at the improvements that would be needed for this project, level of service D was our target. It's possible that, and I believe that's the city's standard as well. It's also level of service D for peak hour operations. It's always possible to build more, put down more concrete, install more traffic signals. But you would be building for a capacity that you only need periodically. So I'm not sure if that answers your question or not, but we are looking at maintaining acceptable levels of service to the year 2035.
Would D be the standard then at Dry Creek and University?
Yes.
And then it would be the standard, say, at Arapahoe Road and Broadway?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just concerned that this is an opportunity to make a difference, and I want to make sure we do it in the planning stage.
Right.
Bruce?
I'm going to ask, I guess, a couple of residential questions. Maybe the easiest one is on the boundary, the external boundary. What is there some sort of fencing? Is it open? What is the expectation for some level of privacy, say along Dry Creek, for example?
Are we talking about the western portion of the project that we're dealing with right now?
Yes, and I guess parenthetically, I'd also ask about the east, even though I understand we're not rezoning it, but just out of curiosity.
You can speak, Christopher. I mean, there's really not any specific.
No, we haven't really gotten into that level of detail. That would be something that would occur at each site plan development. But obviously, the east side being single-family residential, there's probably fencing that would be incorporated on the east side. Right now, I wouldn't envision fencing occurring along the Tract 1 or the western portion there leading into the commercial area. I mean, if there were, it may happen on some walls because we have some grades and too big a drop off of there from a safety standpoint. We may have to introduce some fencing, a lot like what we have at South Glen in some certain areas, but no privacy type fences or 6-foot tall wrought iron fences types of mentality.
And certainly on the commercial attributes, I understand, but I guess, for example, on the F, in particular, since that's going to abut Dry Creek, maybe it's aesthetic, but maybe it's sound related as well. But
yeah, and again, that's just until we would get into that finite level of design with those units. We don't know exactly what uses are going to occur there. In a higher density mixed use residential product like that, you know, they may locate their amenity pieces there. So that may be the weight room, the workout room, something that would work along Dry Creek without having a fence. It may not necessarily be residences right at the ground floor. There's some other ancillary uses that might get incorporated there, but without being specific about the design, which we are not, it's tough to answer.
Now, so that probably answers the next question, but in terms of the residential, what's your guys' thought process? One of the things we run into not infrequently is people who have lived in Littleton for an extended period of time, want to stay in Littleton, but have constraints with respect to housing options. And certainly price points are one, the nature of some of these units might be another. What is in terms of the mix of the residential, and again, certainly the mixed use on F and J, but can you speak to that a little bit? Are there going to be opportunities? And I'm going to ask a follow-on question, but I'll stop there for a moment.
Well, what you see here on the western half for F and J would be more of the traditional multifamily type of project that we showed in the pictures, something more similar to an Alta at Aspen Grove, and the price point being from $900 a unit to $1,100 a unit. So very similar in type of product. What you're not seeing here on Track 2 that we're not discussing tonight is where you will see a mix of uses that the plan calls for, which will be single family, but it will be attached, detached, townhomes, patio homes to more traditional single family detached. We're certainly hearing in the marketplace the demand for all the different product type without a question. So there will be a wide variety of product type on that Track 2, and the densities over there dictate some of that.
Okay, great. With respect to the Metro District, one of the things you run into, with metropolitan districts, and we've seen it in a couple of instances over some period of time, is the property gets developed, and that's great, and then the fees get thrown on top of it, and so then you start seeing price points and or property taxes that start to get onerous as far as longer term residential use is concerned. Do you guys have any feel? You said 900 to 1,000 or 1,100 for the sake of an argument on the F and J. Is there any visibility at your level yet, or at this level yet, with respect to an order of magnitude on the Metro District fee structure that would obviously pay for services, but somebody's going to...
You're jumping ahead to September 3rd, but
Well, I
no,
understand.
we are very actively looking at that, and one of the reasons we're restructuring, and you're going to hear us on September 3rd, is how that's going to work. But we absolutely, have a concept of what mill levy we're looking at. I think we're looking, Garner, 55? Probably 50. 40 to 50 mills on there that we would have from the beginning, so it would be very transparent to anybody coming into the project.
Okay. The gentleman was talking about the yellow area and the grocery versus the soft goods and so forth and so on. Is there any conceptual entertainment-oriented business that would be in there to sort of supplement the straight retail and food?
We have really not looked at that kind of demand. We think the demands that I outlined would be the most appropriate there. Certainly theaters and others have not entered into our discussions at this point in time.
Okay.
The other entertainment, so to speak, would be on the Main Street concept with the restaurant bar, that kind of a situation.
Okay. Who, you guys are obviously going to develop it, and I think the lady indicated that you're trying to go under contract or are under contract, subject to, and so forth and so on. Once it's up and running, who do you plan to be the ongoing property manager? Or asked another way, who's responsible for acquiring the tenants for the commercial side of this whole thing, and what's the timeline on that?
Well, we would be responsible. Look, the commercial or the retail side is the most challenging, and so we've got the experience in it. We've got a broker that we have right now that's, we introduced it at ICSC, which is a big retail conference in Las Vegas. And we started having some discussions, but once we get approval and once we take down the property, then we'll accelerate that. And as you know, we have to put the infrastructure in to the site, all the off-sites, on-sites, and they have to go in. So we want to be able to tell the retailers when we can deliver a building to them or a parcel. And we're kind of saying in the latter part of 2014 and then into 2015. That's kind of our target right now.
Okay. And I think one of the follow-on questions that maybe Glenn had provided back the answer, but just to confirm, I looked at, you look at a development like a Belmar or a South Glen where, at least in those instances, retail was sort of pre-existing, and so there was some element of retail that was already there.
Yes.
But the first entree, I think, for both of those was further retail, and maybe that was a natural progression. Your intent is to do both more or less concurrently.
There's no question what's going to spur the Main Street concept is what we're able to do in that yellow section. Mm-hmm. You've got to get those anchors to come in because they got to drive the trips. And the last thing you want to do is to bring in weak tenants into the Main Street and have a lot of turnover. So sometimes it's a little hard to put the time on it. Mm-hmm. But as soon as we can, that's different than the for sale or the multifamily. You can do that right today. There's enough demand. We all know that. But on the retail, we do believe there's some real interest in getting those anchors in and some junior anchors that we've had discussions with. And that will really prime the pump.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Peggy?
Yeah, I have a question about energy conservation. You planning to do anything major in terms of energy conservation, like going for LEEDs rating or so forth?
Yep, you need to come to the mic.
There's things that we always do depending on the tenant with skylight and with natural lighting that we can do. There's things that we do with the planning and the landscaping and the water conservation that we attempt to build into our landscaping. But in that's on the retail portion. There's not as much as you can do on the LEEDs side of it. If we were to go to an office concept somewhere within that, which you could do, then you would have much more opportunity. When I say an office, maybe it's a 20 or 30,000 square foot office. But we have not set down any specific plans on that right now.
So you aren't considering, for example, solar systems, not skylights, solar systems, super duper insulation. Even if you don't go LEEDs, you don't have to go LEEDs to do these things.
Right.
I might just suggest, well, the way we worked it at South Glen is we looked at it on a case-by-case basis. And that would be something that we would similarly do here. At South Glen, the office building had a strong demand to be a LEED certified building. So if the demand was there, we put it there. The parking garage made sense to do as a LEED certified building. Otherwise, we're going to use good design, good sustainable concepts, and we're going to do our best job in those areas that we can. But to actually certify a building is a whole different level than just being smart, doing good, strong, sustainable design, which is always the goal for any new project.
Yeah, I tossed out LEEDs only so you'd know what I was talking about,
Right.
but I understand you can, without going to the expense of the LEED certification, you can actually achieve a hell of a lot more. And
Absolutely,
so
and the reality with LEED is it's just good design. It's doing the right things. The energy and atmosphere stuff, it's all code now. You have to meet that anyway through all your HVA systems, your mechanical systems, daylight, views. Those are all demands that are out there already, so it's just good design. And of course, we're going to do those types of things. Certifying is something different. So we'll look at that probably on a case-by-case basis, just as we did at South Glen.
Any other questions? Jim?
Well, I would make a couple of comments. The park area on the north side of your proposed development has according to your landscape plan, a lot of deciduous trees as well as evergreen trees. Frankly, I guess I would like to see more evergreens that would shield the residents there from nighttime lights coming out of both the residential and the commercial area for all those openings. You're showing a number of evergreen trees there, but you're also having big gaps with deciduous trees, which in the wintertime does not help those residents. That's comment one. Second comment I'd like to make is that you're referring to this as 2nd Street. Nobody knows where in the hell 2nd Street's going to be. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just an anomaly for the city of Littleton. You might want to look at naming it according to the grid system that's already there. Then people can find it. I know where to get to Sherman Street. I know where to get to Logan Street. I know where to get to Broadway, but I don't know where to get to 2nd Street because it is something that is not normal for this city. So you may want to take a look at what your street names might end up being. Those are the two comments right now.
Anyone else? Jerry?
I do. On the light issue, I know at Aspen Grove there's been an issue with the light pollution down there. What is our plan for this property then?
As with any good development, we look to achieve a zero light pollution into the property line. So by the time any light gets to a property line, we look for it to be a 0 foot candles.
So it won't be like an Aspen Grove type situation where there's a lot of light going to the east side of that property?
I'm not familiar with that at a nighttime solution, but no, I mean, all of our parking lot fixtures will be full cutoff fixtures. Again, you know, through photometrics, we'd show that the light levels were negligible or zero at the property line. So outside of our property, there would be no light spillage.
And one last question. I think I'm questioning out after this, man. I'm ready to move on. So on it's Logan coming out of the property on the south side. So that matches up with Logan Drive. Is that correct?
On the south side, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what's going to prevent folks from just taking the shortcut through Logan Drive to get over to Mineral, to get over to Broadway or heading south or whatever? Isn't that going to increase our traffic on Logan Drive? Sorry, what'd you say, Bruce?
The hospital in between. It ends at
I don't
Dry
think-
Creek.
Not according to the map here.
Yeah, there's the potential for someone to want to cut through. The way we would try to discourage that, for one thing, is to provide acceptable operations over Dry Creek and Broadway. It's actually a shorter distance if you take Dry Creek over to Broadway than if you try to go squirrel your way down Logan.
I guess what I was thinking, though, if I were to take just Logan Drive, I could get right to Mineral and shoot over whichever direction that way. But there's no, you haven't tried to mitigate that at all?
We have not. There are ways to restrict that, but I mean, if you were to put a median across, then you'd be restricting left turns into
And
and
there's
out
no
of the
traffic
site.
light right there either?
There is no traffic light there, no.
Thank you.
Not at this time.
Right.
There is the potential for one in the future, though.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
No way.
Okay, seeing none, we will take a 10-minute break and then come back for the public hearing. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, so this is a public hearing, and I'll open the public hearing. I do have the rosters here, so I will call the name in order, and some people have designated whether they're for or against the project and whether or not they'd like to speak. I'll make those notations. If you have written something incorrectly, you can certainly, if you don't want to speak, you can change or whatever. So don't worry about that. If you did not sign a roster and if you would like to speak, once we're done with the rosters, then we'll open it up to the audience. You have 4 minutes, and I will be pretty strict about the 4 minutes. When you come down, give us your name and address. And so we will go ahead and get started. Norm Stucker, and he does favor the project and would like to speak.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. Norman Stucker, live at 801 Shadycroft Lane. My business is at 2009 West Littleton Boulevard, and I chair the Littleton Business Coalition. Our coalition is a group of small, medium, and large businesses that collectively are joined together to provide a common voice and really move the city forward in the interest of the business community. About 2 weeks ago, we had the developer come in and provide a presentation to our coalition, the executive committee of our coalition, in my office. And after that, we voted as an executive committee, and unanimously we voted to support this project. We feel that it takes an unproductive piece of property. It provides new jobs. It provides new retail sales tax. It provides a mixed demographic, and it is exactly what we believe the city needs. One of our coalition members, Jeff Lawton from Littleton Hospital, will speak specifically about the Littleton's the interest relating to the hospital, but that's an important group of part of our coalition. We also are aware of the traffic concerns, but we think that a mixed-use project located right next to a busy arterial is right where we want that. It's a large piece of property. And we were just having this conversation. We actually think it may be, the property may be larger than the streets of South Glen. And yet it's a mixed-use project. And those are tricky. And I think we're fortunate to have an experienced developer who's done this before. He has brought in a team of local consultants, so they understand the true flavor of our community, and yet we're pulling from his national experience. So both myself personally and my business and Littleton Business Coalition is strongly supportive of this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Norm. Jeff Lawton, he is in favor and would like to speak.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. Jeff Lawton from Littleton Adventist Hospital, 7700 South Broadway, operating in that location since 1989. We share the concern of council and a number of our neighbors as it relates to potential congestion and traffic flow in that community. We're a facility that delivers 10,000 inpatient admissions, 1,500 new babies, 4,400 ER admissions each year. So we do have a concern as it relates to delivering on our mission to nurture the health of our community, whether this potential new development would offer congestion or traffic issues in the proximal community. However, we are in support of this for a couple reasons. In the era of healthcare reform, as a lot of healthcare services move outside of the inpatient environment, opportunity for proximal outpatient care locations as it relates to the commercial opportunities close to the hospital is attractive. Secondly, would like to offer for your consideration a little bit of our workforce information. We employ 1,200 associates at the hospital. We are affiliated with 1,300 physicians. A full 80% of both of those categories commute out from outside of primary Littleton zip codes to our hospital to deliver the healthcare services for our community. So we are also attracted by the additional residential capacity offered by this development so that our healthcare providers, our workforce can serve the needs of our community and then live in our community at the same time. So thank you.
Thank you. John Brackney is for the development and would like to speak.
Paul, could you hear that last guy okay?
Okay, John.
Mayor Brinkman, honorable members of the Littleton City Council, John Brackney, President and CEO of the South Metro Denver Chamber, 2154 East Commons Avenue in the streets of South Glen. I'll be brief tonight. Your staff did superb analysis on this. This is the second time I've seen it tonight. The Planning Commission recommended it unanimously. Several leaders of the South Metro Denver Chamber have met with the developers 3 times. It is superbly designed. When I sat on the dais in one of my previous jobs for 2 terms, to think about the retail that is so important to Littleton's economic future, providing all sorts of safety and security and quality of life issues for your residents. This is the kind of development that will be, I'm not sure a metropolitan Denver regional draw, but you will absolutely pull people from Highlands Ranch and unincorporated Jefferson County and Centennial where I live. As I mentioned in the Planning Commission, I drive by this area not every day, but at least once, twice, 3, 4 times a week. Often to come from Centennial down to Aspen Grove. I'm very hopeful there'll be some restaurants and retail that will keep me here and keep traffic going on down Mineral down to Santa Fe. The mixed use is such a joy to work in. And is the perfect amenity. First retail along the Broadway corridor, then mixed use, then some semi-big boxes or mini big boxes, then mixed use, then higher density in the middle, then residential in phase 2. That is classic land use planning to protect inner city or inner neighbors away from the retail to higher density, then back to scaling it down. It's beautifully done. We're hopeful that this is what Councilmember Beckman talked about, one of the best practices that you'll all be proud about in the future. This is a big parcel of land with a beautiful view, and we think that both the developer and your staff, your Planning Commission, and hopefully you tonight will be enthusiastic about this. Last note, your common sense, pro-economic development, pro-looking forward to the future of providing for the citizens, particularly with retail, is being noted far and wide beyond the Littleton boundaries. And we encourage you to keep on your present course with your staff and your policies. It's getting noticed among many in the business community. We thank you and congratulate you for your service.
Thank you, John. Tom Christopite is not in favor of the project and would like to speak.
Tom Christopite, 714 West Elati Circle, Littleton. I went to the public presentation at the South Suburban Church on this project, and I heard the same stuff we've just heard tonight. At the end of that presentation, I asked the developer, do you have any commitments, letters of intent, or anything else from any tenants in this retail development? No. I haven't heard any tonight either. And my biggest single objection to this project is it's all smoke and mirrors. It's a map with a story. There are no metrics. There are no measures. It says on the east part, well, there's no major adjustments. What's major? 5%? 10%? A couple of weeks ago, you stopped a public meeting because of a change. But we have no metrics here. So what I'm suggesting is I'm urging your no vote. And to some extent, there were 12 items up there on that board why this plan is like the old plan. It's not even necessary. I think you're going to get unknown results of what is proposed. It's just a story. But there's another problem I want to mention. You approved in your consent agenda item 6D, in which you agreed to set a date for the Metropolitan District for this project. And that memo that includes that said you set the date for approval. It mentions that twice. I think your action in this resolution prejudiced your vote on this public hearing. You're a body of judges. You're supposed to vote on the evidence before you, and you voted to set up parts of this project before you heard a word of evidence. You can ask your lawyers, I'm sure you will in executive session, what that means. I think this is all going to be thrown out. But most of all, I urge you to throw out this project. And the fact is, once you pull the trigger on it, you'll never have a chance to do it again. Wait for a project that you're really proud of and when you know what you're getting. Because I think if you approve this, you're approving a pig in a poke. Lots of nice words, but no commitment. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Jim Sieber is not in favor and would like to speak. Jim here. Marty Brezak is not in favor and would like to speak.
Good evening, Council, and thank you. My name is Marty Brezak, and I live in District 4. I read through the package this past weekend, and I was concerned that there was no response from urban drainage, specifically on the drainage into Lee Gulch. That backs up to my house. Yet, Gardner Hammond on page 23 assured us that the flows from the property will be similar to the historical flows that Lee Gulch experienced. What's the number? How will the detention pond be built? How big is it going to be? What's the orifice size? What's the flow? I have to disagree with the staff the Planning Commission and their recommendation, because it does have an impact on the downstream residents in Lee Gulch that back up to Lee Gulch. And Bruce Beckman, you just moved into that area, and I'm surprised the people in that neighborhood aren't up in arms about that. So my proposal is to vote no on this until we get some assurance that we understand the historical flows that are going to be used in Lee Gulch downstream, because it affects my property. Thank you.
Thank you. Lou Sullivan is not in favor and does not wish to speak. Lou, is that still? Okay. Paul Bingham is in favor and would like to speak.
Good evening, council members. My name's Paul Bingham, 236 West Delaware Circle. We just last Sunday celebrated our 50th birthday with that house. So it's been a good 50 years in that house. A little bit of history. Sometime in the 1980s, a developer wanted to locate a car dealership on a 17-acre parcel along South Broadway, and about the 7200 block on the west side. Many of us residents of Bellevue Heights, as it was called in those days, came to the city council and protested. Thankfully, that resulted in the threat going away. Today, that area is a nice area of single-family houses, and Courtesy Ford is down on County Line Road and Broadway where it belongs. It's a perfect place for that, and it's a perfect spot for those houses that went into that lot. That was the result of some protesting. Several years ago, Walmart made a concerted effort to build a big box store on South Santa Fe Drive. Giant protest ensued that many of you and quite a few of us general public types were involved in. After a really long battle, Walmart went away, and recently that whole thing came to a rational conclusion with your approval of the Breckenridge Brewery development. Another time there was a whole bunch of protesting, and it resulted in a good outcome. About 10 years ago, a developer showed up with a rezoning proposal that included not one, but two big box stores for the Marathon Oil Research Facility land on South Broadway. Again, protests ensued, and eventually that went away. Now, several years, several protests, and several developers later, we have Littleton Village up for second reading and public hearing. Changes came about due to the protests, and finally, it came to a rational conclusion. It isn't perfect, but it's better than it was when it started, and many of us still have some doubts about the whole thing, but I support it. The point I'm trying to make with this history is that when we people protest something and the city council listens, often it works out for a good, rational solution, as it has in this case. So we appreciate very much when you folks listen to us common folk. It works out well many times. I thank you for your time, and I thank you for your hard work on Littleton City Council.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. Carol Silverstein didn't indicate whether she was favored the project or not, but would like to speak.
I am in favor with a twist. So I want to thank you all for giving me this opportunity to let me share my vision for the old Marathon Oil site. And as I only have 4 minutes, I will give you the skeleton of my ideas for right now. First of all, I want to thank Watt Investment Properties.
Carol,
I'm
you
sorry.
need to give your address.
Sorry. I want to thank Watt Investment Partners for their interest in our town and for naming their project the Littleton Village. I embrace that name. I love that this could be a place that enhances the quality of life by being family-friendly, economically solvent, diverse, inclusive, and a fun place to be. However, it is the poor quality of life for most people with developmental disabilities that needs to be addressed here in Littleton and statewide. With this in mind, I propose a pilot program of perhaps 50 of the units being funded with state and private monies to support adults with developmental disabilities in their community here in Littleton at the Littleton Village. With combined resources, we can make this type of residential community affordable to numerous families, and we could cut state spending and give a vital choice to those who want to live in the Littleton Village. I envision an assisted living center of sorts that combines resources that have already been allocated from the state and savings from the families so that persons' needs and not the needs of the state can actually be met. To reduce costs to the pilot group, activities would be consolidated into one area of the village. Thus, classrooms, recreation space, office space, and 1 to 2 community kitchens would be needed to support this model. I propose several cost incentives to WIP. The folks using state money could volunteer their time and talents to the village's businesses and to the upkeep of the village itself at no cost. Rental units could be made available for respite, for life skills training, and for trial living opportunities for our adults. A buy-in program could be established for individuals who do not qualify for state funding. The key to making this proposal become reality is to have a committed task force of liaisons between all of the needed agencies. It is beyond time for something new, not for the sake of having something new, but for the sake of the people with developmental disabilities who need a delivery system of supports that will work for them and it will be cost effective for our tax dollars. It truly takes a village to raise a child, especially a child with a developmental disability. I ask that we all pause a moment to imagine all of the positive outcomes that come from meeting the growing needs of this mostly neglected segment of our population. By doing something so innovative, so extraordinary, and so vitally needed and wanted by our community, the end result will be a win-win situation for all agencies and all people involved. The jobs that will come to Littleton will stay in Littleton. The long-term stability of this type of village is inherent in its design, and the community pride and prestige it will bring is immeasurable. Littleton Village could be the pinnacle model for the rest of the state to follow. I would love to work with all of you to make this vision a reality, and I know that there are many other parents who would also love to have this opportunity to create this portion of the Littleton Village along with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Kim Jones didn't indicate in favor or not, but would like to speak.
Hello, Kim Jones, and my address is 5340 South Race Court. I am in favor, and I ditto everything Carol says. I just wanted to provide some statistics on this very neglected demographic. Right now, autistic spectrum disorders, which is the developmentally disabled community, a couple years ago was 1 out of 150. Currently, it's 1 out of 13, and that is right here in Arapahoe County. So we have this tremendous growth of a situation that is only going to get worse. The school system, our public school dollar, our tax dollars are all being taken care of. When they turn 21, later you're on your own. This is a perfect opportunity to integrate an amazing program. Right now, our parents are seeking these residential programs out of state. My daughter's has gone to Kentucky, wonderful program there, where the whole community embraces them. These kids, I say kids, these young adults, they might not have the stamina to work 8 hours a day. It might be too much for them, but they certainly can work 3 to 4 hours a day. They're a lovely demographic group, and they should be a part of this community. They're totally forgotten. Colorado is 49th out of 50 states for funding. Right now, there's a waiting list of 15 years. I just have to take a breath. 15 years for any of our children to get a residential program. So I would really like to read your mission statement that you have, and it says it's to preserve a family-oriented and economically vibrant community that encourages citizen involvement, respects diversity, values community character, and enhances the quality of life of Littleton residents and visitors. We need to follow through on that. We have the opportunity here to do that. Let's create a task force. Let's get some involvement with Watt. Let's make something happen here that can benefit everybody. This is a very exciting group of people. And let's keep our tax dollars here, our revenue dollars here, instead of going out of state. There's some wonderful pilot programs that we can use, and I think we should work together to do that. Thank you very much, and have a great day.
Thank you. Sandra Campbell is against the project and would like to speak. No? Sandra? Mark von Englund is for the project but does not want to speak. I can't really read this name. C. Chavelou, sorry, but is in favor of the project, does not want to speak. Annetta Hallag is in favor of the project, does not want to speak. Betty Harris did not indicate pro or con, did not want to speak. And Colleen Gray did not indicate but did not want to speak. Is there anybody in the audience who didn't sign the roster who would like to come down and address council?
If I might, Mayor, Honorable Council, my name is Larry Rosemary, 7849 South Ogden Way. I'm your neighbor to the east in Centennial. And I'm with Councilman Beckman on this. I just don't understand when we okayed a D as being a standard for anything in the U.S. I think you're right. We ought to upgrade that road system to at least a B. That's my only comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Oh, Pam.
Hi, Council. Again, I'm Pam Chadbourne, as I was before, 5402 South Nevada Street. My comment relates to something that happened 2 years ago. The Council, most of the members here, repealed our lighting ordinance, which was based on the model lighting ordinance, which was constructed by the Dark Skies Association and the National Association of Lighting Engineers. It had been in effect for 10 years. People had designed and built to it. And the council repealed it with, I think, no good reason. The tragedy of this development is it's going to be developed under the loose lighting ordinance, and it could be so much better. If we had still the model lighting ordinance, based lighting ordinance, we would save energy, we would have lighting in this complex that would protect all the neighbors, whether they're off the property or inside the property. You wouldn't have to rely on the promise, it would be part of their requirements. And I asked this at the neighborhood meeting, and they said, yeah, we'll comply with what the ordinances are of the city. So that's the consequence of this council's repealing the MLO-based ordinance. We should have that. We should have it again, and it should apply to future building. But it's a tragedy, I think, that it's not in effect now for this.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing, and I need a motion.
Madam Chairman, I move that the ordinance approving the rezoning of a portion of property known as Littleton Village, located at 7400 South Broadway, that rezoning from PDR to PDC and amending the planned development plan be approved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Council discussion. Phil.
Let me just start off and say it's kind of exciting to have has sat there as a property for as long as I can recall, yet to be developed, although I met some folks that worked on the property earlier this evening during National Night Out, and so it's kind of exciting. One of the things that I like about some of the changes that have occurred is the taking advantage of the topography and the land to provide for sight lines to retail. One of the things that we've seen in some of our discussions with staff and other development is the importance of those sight lines, and also appreciate the reduction over the current plan on impact to the neighbors to the north and to the south. So I think all of those are good. I would like to maybe ask a question, maybe relative to the Lee Gulch drainage, which I forgot to address earlier, and maybe the applicant or community development could comment on that.
Jamie Overgaard, Land Partnership. How we're designing the site is currently approximately 16 acres of the site drains to Lee Gulch. And we have designed, or will be designing, a detention/water quality pond at the southwest corner of the site, kind of where that area 10 is on the exhibit. That will be a water quality/detention pond. And all the drainage that is tributary to Lee Gulch will go through that pond. We'll collect it in a system of storm drain pipes and inlets, pipe it to the pond, and then it will be released at a historic rate per the city criteria, which is for a 100-year develop or 100-year storm or release, it's 1 CFS per acre, and that is as if it was not even a developed site, so a totally pervious site. So hopefully the drainage down to Lee Gulch will be better than it is actually today, because we will be detaining those flows and releasing it per the city criteria. Urban Drainage will also review those plans once we submit them to the City of Littleton, so Urban Drainage will review those plans as well.
Thank you. And then just to Tom's comment, not to be argumentative, but as I read the consent agenda item, it was consideration for approval and not voting for approval. So I listened. So thank you.
Bruce.
Without beating the dead horse, I think it's really important that the city take a real hard look again at the improvements to Broadway and improvements to Dry Creek, and look with a real tough eye at things that are right in and right out and those kinds of things. My memory tells me that we allowed along Broadway up in the north of Littleton Boulevard construction of right in and right outs, and we managed to in my opinion, kill a project pretty effectively because people couldn't get to it from the other side of the road. It's very important that we look at that and look at it in terms of what that project's about, what it's trying to draw in, that it's effectively handling left turns, because that's how people are going to want to get there. They're not going to They're not going to pass by that entrance and then go looking for another one and realize it's all right turns, right, whatever. And that creates the traffic imbalance that I'm very concerned that this situation there can create if the engineering thought isn't given at the very beginning. And it's with a great hesitation that I move forward with something. I'm just not convinced it's meeting the future needs of Littleton with development paying the way today for what is going to be needed.
Jerry?
Yes, thank you. Now, as I recall, back in 2006, the drainage was a huge issue back then, as more so than it is today. And we saw pictures of Lee Gulch over flooding. Now, while I know Lee Gulch doesn't do that often, it does have a tendency to do that when we actually get rain. Glenn, what is the process for the drainage plan? When is it finally going to be approved? Or Charlie? Thank you.
Council, I'm Charlie Boston, Director of Public Works for the city. Councilman, the drainage plan will be prepared as a part of the final subdivision plat. It'll be reviewed by the staff and approved before any construction is initiated. Urban Drainage may have some interest in how it attaches to Lee Gulch. They do not review the actual pipe construction and the drainage system on the property of Littleton Village, but they will review the overall concept, and then the staff will review and approve it and have it ready for construction by the developer. Is that the kind of answer you were looking for?
Yeah, thank you. Now, on the lighting issue, are you a lighting issue guy?
I didn't hear you, excuse me.
The lighting ordinance?
I don't do
Okay,
lighting,
was that
that's over here.
Glenn, he's not going to send in his, okay. So on the lighting ordinance that Pam had brought up, now we do have a lighting ordinance.
Yes, we do.
And what lighting ordinance was he talking about that was voted away?
At one time, we had a lighting ordinance, actually right when I started, that set lighting budgets for certain parts of the site. It was a much different way of calculating how much light would be allowed on the site and off the site.
Okay, and the reason I asked that is because light pollution is an issue for those of us that like looking at the planets and stars and stuff. And as a side note, if anybody saw the space station last night, it was a -4 last night. It was pretty incredible to go over. But I would think, though, with the lighting in this area is just really going to pollute the surrounding neighborhood somehow. What do we have for shielding that's going to protect some of those folks in Centennial?
I think that's actually when we amended the ordinance, we kept that in mind, is that's the concern, is the actual light that goes off-site and encroaches on neighborhoods. So what our lighting ordinance says right now is no more than, I believe it's 0.1 foot candle within 10 feet of the property line. The developer said they were going to have it at 0, so they're actually going further than our ordinance would require.
Okay. I think my next question then will be for the applicant as far as anchor stores. And it's my understanding that an anchor store is going to be hesitant to announce that they're going to move to an area that has not yet been approved. Is that correct?
They're going to be hesitant to
announce they're going to move to a location that has not yet been approved.
Well, once we enter into a lease and we have a commitment to when we're going to deliver either a parcel, if they're going to ground lease, or a building, they would be prepared to announce.
I guess what I'm thinking of at this stage.
At this stage right now?
Right.
No, I mean, at this point in time, the discussions we had are letters of intent, and they haven't even entered into leases at this point in time.
And of course, it's in your best interest to actually snag somebody if approved.
Well, I mean, I think, they've been down this track before as well, and they want to see this approved, and then they want to see us take down the property. And then they want to be convinced that we can put the infrastructure in when we say we can be.
Correct.
All that can be done. I mean, those are defined events. I think at that point in time, you'll start to hear and see information coming out from the tenants, from the anchor tenants.
One last statement. I remember, again, back in 2006 when Mark Wernicke down over there, he was on the planning commission as well as I was. I think, Mark, you may even have been the chair at that time. I do remember one of the city council people for Centennial coming down here, who's no longer on city council at Centennial, and requesting that we not build this property for the sake of her constituents in Centennial. And it was a matter of weeks later that she went and voted to approve the South Glen project.
You're right.
So I thought that was interesting that she did that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bruce.
I want to make a comment, and then I'm going to add some stuff to the record from a context perspective, so I'll be brief, but probably not as brief as my colleagues.
You turn the light on?
Yeah, you can do that now if you want, just to save time. With respect to the ladies that came down on the DD issue, I have more than a passing interest in your comments. I'm not prepared at this juncture, given how far this project has progressed, to offer any sort of an amendment, because what you've described is very complex and does, in fact, revolve around a lot of state-based issues. I would be very encouraging of Wyatt to have conversations with you to see if there's accommodations that could move in a positive direction. And I would likewise be happy to work with you to figure out how these issues could be brought forth somewhat sooner in the process. Thank you. With respect to the issue at hand, the context we're working in, I think, is very important in terms of the rezone, and it's this rezone and any rezone is subject to this kind of context. As was mentioned earlier, that in a quasi-judicial proceeding, council's responsibility is to render a decision based upon the weight of the evidence presented. This particular project has a variety of information presented and a lot of commendable attributes. It appears to me to meet the requirements of Code Section 10-2-23 regarding the PD Plan Development District, the intent of which is that the district is to be created to promote public health, safety, and general welfare by allowing more flexible development based upon a comprehensive integrated plan. For purposes of applying certain regulations and standards to ensure maximum flexibility, the district is divided into sub-districts based on primary land use on all or a portion of the land covered by the general PD plan. Subsection B then talks about a variety of attributes such as encouraging more creative and effective use of land and public or private services to accommodate changes in land development technology so the resulting economies benefit the community, encourage innovation and efficiency in residential development, encourage innovative development or redevelopment of all land uses to meet the contemporary needs of the community by providing a greater variety and mix of uses, including those which may coexist on the same parcel or within the same building as shown on approved general PD plan. The applicant, in my opinion, has demonstrated satisfactorily compliance with those code sections. Further referenced is Code Section 10-9-1 talking about plan development overlay intent, which is interesting and it's pertinent and specific to this case. It's the purpose of the PDO regulations to provide a procedure which permits more flexible site design and development than is possible under traditional zone districts, while maintaining the land use characteristics of those districts. Through application and provisions of this chapter, property may be developed in a more effective and efficient manner within the existing zone district, and transfers of density as defined in Section 10-1-2 of this title are specifically encouraged under the provisions of this chapter, and to the extent that more effective and efficient site design and development is promoted, the use of this technique is permitted, subject to approval by the Director of Community Development. The reference to Code Section 10-1-2 talks about transfer of density and the conveyance of regulated density of development from one portion of a site to another portion of the same site while maintaining the maximum permitted intensity or density for the entire site. And pretty clearly, the applicant has stipulated to both of those code sections in terms of presenting the plan as we're being requested to approve. It's also appropriate to look at just general context of the law, and in looking at, for example, Colorado land planning and development law, page 78, it talks about in evaluating a rezoning application, a local government asks whether the proposal complies with the comprehensive plan, and if so, the proposed rezoning need only bear a reasonable relationship to the general welfare of the community. The Littleton comprehensive plan talks predominantly, and the first priority of the plan specifically is economic development, and the community-wide goals further state, goal number 5 talks about preserving existing neighborhood values while encouraging any new development to make the most efficient use of land, resulting in the highest possible standard of living and the best use of natural resources. And goal 7 talks about promoting and maintaining an attractive, healthful living environment for present and future Littleton residents. As a result of that information and context, I find as follows with respect to the evidence presented. Code section 10-9-1 is absolutely spot on point. Page 42 of the applicant's submission and page 49 also, page 42 specifically talks about the reference to code section 10-9-1, and page 49 of the submission lists the various compliance with sections, code section 10-2-23. In my opinion, the proposed layout appears to be more appropriate than the original as far as support for successful commercial development is concerned. I thought the comments from the gentleman from Littleton Hospital were very pertinent, and based upon the evidence presented, I find that the requested change in zoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan and that the application should be approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim.
Well, we went through a lot of brain damage in 2006 and previously to that as well. This is not making a lot of changes in the 2006 plan that did get approved and did have some community support at that time. This is an experienced builder. It is compatible with the 2006 plan. There's no increase in density. There's no the drainage patterns remain the same, and we are moving from some residential to commercial zoning by changing that boundary line, and I think this is a good plan, and I wish them luck in getting started soon.
Peggy?
There's no need for me to repeat all the good things people have articulated very clearly, so I support this.
Any other comments? I also support the plan. I think that it is, it's nice to see a strong developer come in who has the ability to combine the retail, the commercial, do some mixed use, and also work with the residential. I think you guys have looked at this very thoughtfully because it is an interesting piece of property. It has a lot of really great assets, and then it's got some real challenges. And I think that you've addressed those very much to not only our requirements, but I think to what you're hearing from the community too. A couple things I heard tonight, I didn't realize this, that this is actually a bigger landmass than South Glen, Streets of South Glen. And I will say that Streets of South Glen has definitely made its impact on Littleton. And we don't have a lot of large parcels left. In fact, after this one, there's only one. And the future of that, it may not happen, well, most of us are alive. But I think that it is becoming more and more important for an infill municipality like Littleton, where we are supported financially primarily by sales tax revenue, that the planning and the design of this and the retail that you're talking about, that there's a very strong focus on the benefit, the financial benefit back to the city coffers. And we don't get that benefit with a dry cleaner. We have no grocery tax in this community. So while I understand the need for a community that they love the small little, you know, like Sprouts or those types of things that are popping up, those are important. They may attract others. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just suggesting that our needs are to bring in sales tax and entities that don't really help us. I also think that this is also an opportunity to have a community that is live, work, play. And that's exciting, and that I think that's interesting because that really does attract and draw great population. Young, dynamic people, people that want to downsize into smaller homes. So I think looking at some of the architectural samples that you showed us, I guess I would just suggest that you've got one chance to build this, and if it really looks like everybody else that's out there right now, then it's really nothing that special. And for us, this has to be special because, like I said, this is our last one of our last large land masses, a second. So just comments, and we're not here to approve your design or your retail merchants at this point, but I thought I've got a microphone, so I'll weigh in. Okay, so council, are we ready to vote, or is there any more discussion? Okay. Yes vote approves the rezone of a portion of the property known as Littleton Village from PDR to PDC, and amending the plan development plan be approved.
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries.
Yep. Thank you. Congratulations.
Well.
Okay. We'll give folks a few minutes to exit, and then we do have some more business to take care of.
Zero, I didn't expect that.
I didn't either.
Yeah, man, pizza.
Yeah, we're.
I thought a late meeting, this will be a great time for dinner.
There's all our barbecue.
Yeah, really.
Thank you.
This is my third time to see that project. I hope it gets built this time.
Yeah, you should have that one.
Paul,
That one in your sleep.
we have more to go.
Exactly.
More to go. You do want to stay, don't you? I guess that grin means no.
Say goodnight to Betty.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and finish the meeting. Our next order of business is item, let me look here, is general business. And we have, are moving forward with our Charter Review Committee. We did make amendments to the document at our last meeting, and that is being changed. We'll get that back to take a look at it. So we have each been asked to appoint 2 members of the community. This is not an approval process. This is simply a public announcement of who we've chosen to appoint. So I think the best way to do this is just simply to have each of us name the 2 people we have appointed. We'll just go down the line, and then upon that conclusion of that, we'll move on to the next item. Peggy, you want to start?
Yes, and Wendy, I'll give you addresses afterwards. My first one is Steve Brainerd, Brainard. And my second one is Don Schiff, Schiff.
Norm Brown and Susan Thornton.
Norman?
Thornton. Thornton.
Karen Millspaugh and Diane Liker, Lieker.
Tom Wooten and Stu Maher.
William Long, Daniel Dillon.
Brian Vogt, VOGT, and Sally Parsons.
Kevin Kostoff, Kostoff, and Kimberly Field, Field.
That is done.
Okay.
It's a good group. It's a good group.
It's a good
You'll be
group,
very
and I
strong.
think it's a very diverse group. It's, we pulled from a variety of entities, and I think after having spoken to a number of council members, for the applicants are taking this incredibly serious, and they are ready to roll up their sleeves and get to work. So this kind of gives them an opportunity to get a little bit of a head start. We'll leave it up to staff to notify and get this going in order for them to start their planning. I know that a number of them, I think at least 4, have indicated that they have some sort of out-of-town planned over the next 2 months, and so want to try to coordinate those things. So the sooner we can get these guys coordinated, the better, I think, for them. Okay, great. Good job, guys. Item 10, ordinances on first reading. The first ordinance is a renewal of the Meyer Farm lease for the Littleton Inglewood wastewater treatment plant. And Charlie, do you want to give us any detail on that? I don't know, Council has any questions? This comes across every couple years.
Very briefly, we own about 8,000 acres with the city of Inglewood out east that we use for biosolids disposal. Biosolids is another term for sewage sludge. That property is all farmed by 2 property owners, the Myers and the Byers, and this renews one of those leases. It's for a short period of time, a couple of years, and then it'll come up again, and we will have all the leases renewed at the same time. We get $8 per acre for this farming activity, and they do wheat farming on it. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to respond.
Bruce?
Yeah, one quick one. Last time this came up, there was something about a power line right-of-way easement or payment. What's the skinny on that?
There's a private company that wanted to do a wind energy power system through the property, and we've been working with them to do that. They haven't built it, and they're still interested, but it hasn't come to a conclusion.
Okay, but the lease doesn't...
No, has no effect on that at all.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, need a motion?
Madam Chairman, I move the ordinance authorizing the City of Littleton to approve the farm lease on behalf of the Littleton Inglewood Wastewater Treatment Plant for a term of 2 years, be approved on first reading, and a public hearing be scheduled for the 20th of August, 2013.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Ready to vote?
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries.
Okay. Item 10B, this is a ordinance on first reading, and get to the ordinance. This is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Littleton, Colorado, approving the 4th Amendment to the Meadows at Platte Valley General Plan, Development Plan, and the rezoning of a portion of the property known as 7620 South Platte Canyon Road from PDC, Plan Development Commercial, to PDR, Plan Development Residential. Any questions?
Are we going to hear from
If
staff?
Staff can, it's first reading, staff, you want to come down and give us the skinny?
Mayor and council, as you mentioned, it's a rezoning of the 16-acre parcel. They're rezoning 13 acres of it from PDC to PDR for 250 residential units. On July 22nd, the planning board heard the case and recommended approval by a vote of 5-2. So we ask that you approve first reading and set the second hearing for August 20th. I'd be happy to answer any questions or take questions and answer them on August 20th.
Bruce?
Yes, Glenn, it appears on just the first review of this particular issue that the viability of commercial development on that site will be sort of a key issue. Is there any, there was information presented in the packet concerning that topic, which is some parenthetical, has, you know, on the one hand you say, well, if it's been there for how long, maybe it would have developed if there was a reason to develop it. Is there any viable way of getting independent information or third-party corroboration of the assumption that it is or is not developable as commercial?
I think the most compelling testimony was not only the fact that, yes, it's been vacant for 26 years or whatever. I think when you look at what's happened to really the market area around that, and there are multipliers that there should be X number of rooftops in order to support how many acre of retail. And when you look at this particular site, a lot of it's underwater. It's either lake or it's open space. So I think that's kind of a compelling argument. The applicant gave more pragmatic experience of just tenants that they've talked to, and a lot of those tenants are looking at traffic on Santa Fe as somewhere they want to locate versus 1 mile over at Platte Canyon, where the number of trips is considerably lower. So we can kind of try and pull together some of those metrics and
well, I guess maybe the way to say this would be as a request, given the importance of that particular topic, it would be, I think it would be worthwhile to maybe expand the potential input, you know, from other subject matter experts that would look at this in a dispassionate way and basically say, well, you know, either a yes or no. I'm not assuming one or the other. I'm just saying if we could get some additional information in terms of the marketability of that particular site for commercial development, that would be, I think, useful to us. Be useful to me.
And I'll just echo Bruce's comments on that, which in taking a long view, not just short market view on that, will be very important to see some justification, some substance that on that front, and even considering possibilities of mixed use versus 100% residential.
Mm-hmm. Bruce.
Help me understand the vacant area that we're talking about. In the communication, it says the property is 16 point something acres. Is that everything that is vacant there now today? That is the totality of the 16 acres. It's that when you see it, it's that square. It's 16 acres.
Yeah, right up against the existing apartments that are there, the Pinnacle Apartments, to the 2 streets. That's basically the 16 acres.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Jim?
I'm just going to echo what Mr. Stallman said. We'd really like a little more evidence, if possible, of their efforts to secure commercial uses for that property.
Peggy?
Yeah, I'd appreciate if you give in written responses you have on other things for us, you know, send them to us. responses to the citizen comments to the planning board. You know, there's some real interesting comments in the citizen comments. So you can address those to us in writing, save us some time.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. I need a motion.
I move that the ordinance approving the general plan development amendments and the rezoning of a portion of the property located at 7620 South Platte Canyon Road be approved on first reading. Public hearing date be set for August 20th, 2013.
Second.
Okay. Ready to vote? Nope.
The vote is 6 in favor, with Councilmember Beckman voting no. The motion carries.
Okay, item 10C is a first reading of an ordinance to amend Section 20 of the Littleton City Charter. This is an ordinance of the City of Littleton, Colorado, submitting a charter amendment to the electors of the city for the November 5th, 2013 election, amending Section 20 of the City Charter to require that divisions, changes, and consolidations of districts occur every 10 years following publication of the federal decennial census. So this is an ordinance that was brought up by Councilmember Taylor last session. Does anybody have any questions, any comments? Mike, do you have anything you want to add?
No, it's effectively that. It's redistricting every 10 years instead of every 4.
Instead of every 4. Bruce?
Just a comment. I ran into a citizen today who was in that area up around Ridge and Prince, in that area that has gone back and forth and back and forth. And, you know, he expressed it was frustrating and that just a 10-year break would suddenly make a difference for him because he is one who watches the politics and wants to know. So I just think it's common sense and it fits the census, which is really what we base it on.
Okay, you want to make a
motion? I
motion?
don't disagree. I get the same comments because it was shifting between me and Debbie's districts, and they don't know who their representative is half the time.
Yeah. Well, I'm all of us, I think.
Bruce, Peggy, and me.
Yeah, it could be others as well.
No, I meant at large.
Jim, you want to make a motion?
Well, I can't find it yet because it takes me too long to scroll through this.
Page 251 of the
I
package.
move to approve ordinance 21 on first reading and set the second reading for August 20th, 2013.
Okay. Need a second?
Second.
So
Jerry's got a
I do
second.
have a request before we vote. On the second reading, I would like to have some pros and cons stated in what's recommended. I'm not arguing for or against this, but I would just like to have that laid out as part of the public record.
Okay.
Just
Ready to vote?
I have a comment maybe.
I'm sorry.
You know,
Bruce?
maybe just reflecting what Peggy's saying, you know, we do have an election commission that should have an opinion on this. And so we probably ought to know what their feeling is on it too, because they did work very hard at the last time and maybe they have a point of view that would be valuable to us.
Okay. Wendy? Okay. Cool. Ready to vote?
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries.
Okay, item 10D is an ordinance on first reading, and this is an ordinance of the City of Littleton, Colorado, submitting a charter amendment to the electors of the city for the November 5th, 2013 election, amending Section 37 of the City Charter regarding approval of rezoning applications by City Council. And this Councilmember Taylor brought this up. You want to address it, Jim?
Yes. You know, I keep looking at what other cities in the metropolitan area are doing. And they put 10, 12 issues on the ballot for people to consider. Our voters are just as intelligent as they are. They can figure out what they want to do. This proposal just gives them one more choice as to how they would like to see us do rezones. And, you know, I hate to put people in the position of saying, no, I don't want to do that. because that indicates you are thinking that the citizens are not really responsible enough to figure out what they want to have us do. So I think this is just one more opportunity for citizens to tell us some of the things that they would like for us to do.
Any comments or questions? Jerry?
Yes, I do. So are we endorsing, or does this endorse the 500 feet? Is that where the 51%?
Yeah, this is for the 51% at 500 feet.
Because I would prefer to see it less. I don't have an issue with the 33% at 300 feet, but
Because we have that on second reading next regular meeting.
yeah.
So this would go to second reading. If this approved, it would go to second reading at that same meeting. Correct? Okay.
And both of them would be public hearings.
Correct. Bruce?
I think there's some merit to this concept, and I think that I would like to know whether the other petition that was initiated by the citizen group would have the signatures to make it on to the election, because I am concerned about two mixed messages for what is probably a good idea, just two messages that may be not appropriate to do two messages.
I just received the ballots today, and I have to verify at least 1,536 signatures, I think it is. So by statute, I have 15 days, but I'm going to try to have them done by next Wednesday so that we can get it on the 20th, so that I can certify the ballot to the council, or the petitions to the council, and then we can set the ballot question by resolution. And so I don't know if it's there yet. I just got the petitions.
Will we know next week, or actually 2 weeks from now?
For the
will.
20th?
Yeah, for the,
That's what I'm going for.
okay.
I'm trying to get them done by then. I've got several people working on it. We've got it set up, assembly line going, so.
Okay. Peggy?
Yeah, I do not think this should be in the charter. At the state level, this is addressed in a state statute that relates to non-home rule municipalities, but it's not in the state constitution. And I do not believe it should be addressed in our charter. And I regret that an ordinance for city code similar to the state statute was not brought to us when I requested it a few months ago, so that we could have dealt with this in a different way. But I cannot myself support it in the charter.
Any other comments? Phil?
Just between now and then, not only what the petition has, I haven't seen the petition, so comparison of that to the state and to the state requirements would be something I'd want to very much see. And also, what are some of the implications if two measures end up going to the voters and they approve both, because they would seem to be contradictory? What happens on that front? And, City Attorney, you don't have to answer now.
Actually, that's an easy one, Councilmember, because City Manager already asked me that question. So we looked at it. State law says whichever one gets the most votes wins.
Okay.
So it is possible to pass both of them, but the one with the highest votes will be what becomes the law of the land.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
I move to approve ordinance number 22 on first reading, set the second reading for August 20th, 2013.
Okay. Need a second?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to move this to a second reading and public hearing for August 20th. Ready to vote?
The vote is 4 in favor, with Councilmember Cole, Councilmember Valdez, and Councilmember Beckman voting no. The motion carries.
Okay, now we are on to comments and reports. City Manager, Deputy City Manager. And you're doing a great job tonight.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's been a
Yeah, when you did talk, I didn't understand a word you said.
I just wanted to comment on the item brought up by Larry Borger and the Kettering Lake. We are, just as he mentioned, we have contracted with Wright Water Engineers, and they will be bringing forward an analysis of doing shallow, deep wells, as well as the issue with McClellan Reservoir, and seeing what we can do with that. And that will be on the work session on the
27th.
All right.
Mike, quick question though, follow on with that. You guys have considered the issue of the 16 acre feet from McClellan, putting it into the canal and running it to the head gate. And do you want to talk about that a little bit?
That I'm not sure on, and I'd have to go back and talk with Wright Water Engineers to see if that's being considered or what the issue is there.
Okay, because
I just don't have enough information to speak to that.
Right, I understand. So I mean, I guess when you guys, if we're doing this at a study session, some sort of high-level view to, you know, what's it going to cost? How much are we going to get from point A to point B? What are the issues? Are obviously going to be some sort of agreement with Denver Water to use right away, so forth and so on. But just like to get that spelled out so that it's everybody's on the same page of the playbook, if you will. Okay.
As well as if water is coming from McClellan, what percentage coming down the, I guess coming down the Highlands Canal, what percentage is actually lost before it gets to Kettering, please?
And Council, it is part of the reason why this is taking a bit of time is because the amount of research that needs to be done. Because not only do we need to figure out, can we do it? Is there enough water to do it? Where do we get all the water? And what is it going to cost? Right. And so all of those are parts and pieces that I know there's half a dozen staff folks that are working on this now. So it will be hopefully a thorough report, and I think that there's a expectation at the study session that we have enough information from staff that we can move one way or the other as opposed to continue to investigate. So yes.
And I'm assuming that Wright Water will look at the wells that were permitted many years ago, if they can be reactivated.
Yep. They're looking at all water sources for that right now.
Great.
And we're getting costs on drilling too. Anything else, Mike?
Nothing. Thank you.
Okay. Bruce.
Well, like all of us, we went to some National Night Out get-togethers tonight. There were over, I think, 35 or 37 of them in the city. And some of the people who helped put it on thought that with all the interest that maybe next year they could have closer to 50. You know, we went 2 years without police and city support for that activity. And everybody to a person was so excited to see police officers, McGruff, fire trucks, you know, and all the things that go with National Night Out. It was enthusiastically embraced again. I was so impressed by what people had to say. And the folks that I talked to were just tremendously happy being in Littleton, happy being part of their neighborhoods, excited about what was going on, and just very excited about the police being involved again. So I think that was just a wonderful event. I'm sure others want to talk about it, but I am so pleased, having been involved in it for many years, then watching it kind of go down the dump for 2 years. It's back, and it's definitely good.
Thank you. Phil?
Yes, just to echo Bruce's comments on National Night Out, and thank you to all of those folks that stepped forward to host them. It's not without some effort that they either open their garages, their homes, their front yards, or coordinate activity with other neighbors. And our neighborhoods are, if not the strength, certainly a major strength of the city, and it was nice to see folks out and talking with each other, and on occasion seeing folks introduce themselves to each other. So that was wonderful. A couple of other items. I don't know if the staff has yet distributed the Economic Development Group report on office space in the South Metro region, and it actually shows a pretty booming level of use of office space. So kind of an interesting read as a background piece of information for us. This weekend, on Friday and Saturday, is the South Metro Denver Chambers Leadership Retreat. I'll be attending on that. And going to the areas of transportation, we had the young man that from Coperg that presented here. I met with one of his cohorts later this week, trying to channel some of their information and not just share with us national reports, but to make it a lot more relatable both to the Denver metro region and particularly the South Metro region, being where we are. And one of the things that I'd also like to do is make sure that although there's not a zillion folks in the room right now, but I want to extend at least my kudos to the mayor for organizing and helping to organize the Littleton Criterium that's going to be this Sunday. Bringing back bicycle races to Littleton. It's been part of our history, and way to go, Deb.
Thank you. Jerry?
It's 11:45. Put a fork in me.
Bruce?
Yeah, it is likewise on National Night Out, and the other comment was the mayor and I had an opportunity, I guess, and Councilmember Cole was there as well, but we attended the Littleton Immigrant Resource Center's administration of the oath of citizenship to, what was it, 38 new citizens from 18 countries last Thursday.
And
Yeah.
5 continents.
5 continents, yeah, really terrific event and very inspirational to experience it with the folks that are becoming new citizens. It reinforces a lot of why we do what we do. So that's it.
Jim?
Last week, Bruce Beckman and I attended the Denver South Economic Development Partnership meeting, and it's a little bit disappointed that they didn't talk a lot about what they actually do. It was Bruce's first time to go to that meeting, but they're a very interesting group, and they really do promote the whole South Metro area, although their focus is somewhat around I-25. But Michael Hancock, the mayor of Denver, was there to speak, and he talked about the metropolitan cooperation, about the investments the larger region is making, about trying to keep what we already have and not losing it to another metro region somewhere, and how we need to be really working regionally. There was also a presentation done by the Denver Zoo marketing staff about all the changes that they've made at the zoo and how that is such a national recognized tourist attraction for Denver. Then Dr. Cog, the Metro Vision Implementation Task Force, met last week. We got a preliminary report on construction defects, and the final report will come out in September. We'll probably go to the Dr. Cog board, I'm guessing in October. And it'll be hopefully revealing and will give us a roadmap of what we need to be doing legislatively. It was reported that the pool of money that is set aside to keep any changes in the law from happening is already sitting at $2 million. So trying to lobby against that in the next legislative session with our hundreds of dollars is going to be a real challenge.
Peggy?
So just real quick, the National Night Out parties were super, but I also want to thank the citizens, the police citizens alumni, because they put in a lot of work to coordinate that. At the meeting last week, at the alumni meeting, they said they're going to try next year to get more sponsors. Right now, got the coupons from Safeway for $15. They're going to be trying to get more sponsorships to help pay more of the cost for citizens to have these. So I think that's really great effort. And yesterday and today, I helped volunteer at the Teen CSI Academy. And that is fascinating, really fascinating. And it's a three-day event, and the kids are really profiting from that with the learning about fatal teen accident. I'm sure Bruce knows that one, and then the murder fire that was out on South Pennsylvania. They learned about that today, and just incredible program. Anyway, and then if anybody is still watching at home or here, and you haven't done the Police Citizens Academy, you can hopefully still get a slot for September.
Jim?
Thank you.
I would be remiss if I didn't talk about that Western Welcome Week starts on Friday for a 10-day event, and lots of exciting activities will be going on, so everybody help participate and have a good time.
Go ahead.
I just want to comment. I'd commented about having these reports at the end of our meeting, and I think this is a perfect reason why I don't want these reports at the end of the meeting. I think everybody is saying stuff that is very important, but it should be heard by everybody. And this late at night, late after a meeting, our message just isn't going to get out there to everybody. I'd rather it be at the beginning of meetings where we were.
I have a couple comments. One is the Metro Mayor's Caucus has a subcommittee which is working on the construction deficit law. It went into the legislature this year and was voted down, state legislature, and they voted down any adjustment to that. So the caucus has a committee led by the mayor of Lakewood, and I'll get an update on that tomorrow at our meeting. But there is definitely a push, and it's not just coming from the Metro Mayor group, but there's a push throughout the state to look at that and get the legislature to make some revisions and get that thing changed. Along the lines of the immigrant initiative naturalization ceremony that we did this morning, Senator Bennett was in Littleton, and he visited Bemis and got a walkthrough of all the programs that the initiative's doing, and they were doing a United States trivia type of Jeopardy game, and he sat down and answered some questions. They have flashcards that they work with on the questions, and the lady was reading it to him, and he said, no, read it in Spanish. So she read it in Spanish, he answered it in Spanish. Impressive. But the point there is that the federal legislature that they have pushed, that the Senate has pushed through on immigration reform, Senator Bennett structured that based on the Littleton Immigrant Initiative. And so I think that's quite a coup for us in terms of doing something right and getting recognized for it. So hopefully it's a trickle up. We do it right at the muni level, and the feds catch on.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing, it's only 30 pages of something like a 1,500-page document.
Hey, that's the feds. Then my only other comment was that what Phil said about the criterium, I think it's going to be an incredible event for the community, and it's its first year, has a great opportunity to grow. The downtown merchants have been welcoming and amazing. We're closing streets, we are shutting things down, we are doing all kinds of stuff down there that normally would probably not be very much accepted or approved, but everybody's really embracing this, and I think it's going to be an incredible event. And just a shout out to Bill, the owner of Petal. This is a merchant who came to town a couple of years ago and has embraced the community and has brought this event to the community. And, he is really someone who, it's those types of businesses and those types of merchants that really do create the type of community that I think we all love and want. So my hat off to him, and if you guys get a chance to give him a call or stop by
Is
and
that
just
a
thank him.
Often imitated, never
No, it
duplicated
isn't.
emerging plug of the week?
No, it isn't.
And just
I was curious.
one quick assignment for the deputy city manager. I've made a request for an update on our trail safety and trail crossing safety study, so I'd like to hear a date for when we might expect an update on that.
I will have to go back and figure that out, but yeah.
Thanks, Mike.
I have no idea.
Okay, no other business. We're adjourned.